Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. Today is Tuesday, January 20th. I made this video yesterday, and it's a long voiceover. I talk about my family in the middle of it. There's a whole bunch of me mocking Jen Psaki and her, wanting to be a TikToker type, whatever they're doing there. And how the, mainstream media's completely copying everything that's happened on the internet. And then Candace Owens dropped another one of her goofy things where she kind of seems to be moving away from Mitch Snow with a new anonymous source, at least something that somebody that she's possibly made up, who is claiming he knows who shot JFK, and it's the same person same people, same families that went after Charlie Kirk years later, and has to do with corrupt police in Dallas. So it's quite a lot of stuff here. But here is my channel, the Apocalypse Now channel, that's linked in all of my videos. I have a few videos out here. I have my chicken updates for those of you who we had new chickens that were laying. Some of you guys are watching that. Here's Will Smith outed again, and then some other videos that I posted every 3 days here. On my days off on Pockets of Future, I post a short video here. These videos are like, this one's 12 minutes, this one's 5 minutes. This one has to do with Celine Dion and Erica Kirk, some drag queen dressed up as like Erica Kirk, and mocked her. And Sean Penn is dating some dude, so that's the video that's going up today. The video you're watching won't be up till tomorrow morning. So, but you can find these videos here. And then Will Smith has a new show, and it's called I Shit You Not, Pole to Pole. I saw it, and it didn't register at first until I was doing this update video about him and his continuously being his public humiliation. So, again, this is, I'm trying to keep this channel monetized in case something happens to the other channel. So I'm going to be posting content here for a while. Like I said, short videos every 3 days on my off day on Pockets of the Future. Okay, so that's the introduction. Let's get into the other stuff here. Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. Today is Monday, January 19th. This video is not going up till Wednesday. I'm taking Tuesday off. I have a video already that's going up tonight. I have a thing with Jen Psaki, which I wanted to put in my last video, and I just absolutely forgot about it. And I got a bunch of stories I want to tell. I don't know if it's going to be at the end of this video, in the middle, just family stories and all these memories that came back up, and my different interpretation of them. Thinking about them in a completely different way at age 61 or whatever the fuck I am. So let's start with this two things, and then I want to get into some of the truther stuff. So there was a couple of videos that said Turning Point has sent me a cease and desist letter. And I don't know who it is and what's it about. And I don't know why it wouldn't be Candace Owens, right? But somebody else. And, some channel or, group or people, I don't know. They must be in the right wing, in that whole group, a flock of people. And then this popped up this morning. Difficult to put into words how terrible of an idea it was for Turning Point USK to send out this cease and desist letter. I'm at the point where I think someone internally absolutely detests Erica and permanently feeds her bad ideas, her terrible ideas. That's dyslexia when I just start reading ahead of the words and I put in bad instead of terrible on my own, right? I'm at the point where I think someone internally absolutely detests Erica and permanently feeds her terrible ideas. It's the only thing that makes sense at this point. I again offer my consulting services to TPUSK. For a monthly retainer, we could end this corporate shit show. Well, the idea, I think, is because Charlie Kirk believed in freedom of speech. And so, like, them doing that. I don't know what's going on there, but I do know when I look at their channel, they have no views and have no. They're just done, right? Like people have made their decision about Turning Point USK post Charlie Kirk, and they're not into it. And even if they, were a little bit more not believing the official story, but they can't even be like that, so that's not even an option. But if they're a little bit more, like their content's really bad. Their channel would not grow on its own based on the guys who are there, right? They are not people who could carry a show. They're not interesting, and people don't want to listen to them. The guys, the two twinks, whatever I call them, the two beta males sharing one testicle guys, and then just their guests. I mean, it's pointing out really bad content, and I don't really understand the right wing stuff anyway. But I mean, I don't know what people see in it, but they're the worst out there. Like they bring in anybody, even like that guy Tim Pool is better than them, right? So like they're I mean they're like Ben Shapiro level people, and so I want to start with that, but let's go to the Jen Psaki thing.
Hi, it's Jen.
Hey Jen. Hey Jen. How you doing? You're so folksy, Jen. Wow, you're so fucking folksy, Jen. Hey, it's Jen. So fucking folksy with your cool fucking podcast microphone and your rainbow thing behind you and the thing that says man. What does it say? Man in the arena. And the old clippings, and it's just this tailored background that you have. It's Jen. Hey, it's Jen. Hey, Jen, it's Paul. What's up? It's just like we're having a conversation. Me and Jen are talking very folksy, like so. It's so TikTok. It's like we're TikTokers. Let's do some TikToking. Let's do some podcasting and TikToking with Jen. Hey, it's Jen, man. It's Jen. Okay, so the name of this is. That's only 1 second into the video. I want to see that again because that's hilarious. Psaki bombs. Noam humiliated. What if Obama flipped? And there's something with the F word in it. It's blocked out. It's like they starred the. They didn't say the whole thing with it, right? What if Obama flips somebody off, and the guy she fucking loves? And I'm not sure what that reference is to, but that she's got the F word in the title itself, right? So first of all, Psaki bombs. It's like a truth bomb, and I covered this with Dana Bash when she was doing these folksy little. They're all doing podcasts now because no one watches their bullshit anymore, and so I wanted to talk about a little bit of the history of the truth community and why this is a problem. And it's a problem with Candace Owens and certainly Charlie Kirk, who are never really truthers. Candace Owens, is trying to embrace that now, like just now. But certainly you can see that she wasn't and isn't. And they're ignoring like a lot of shit, right? Like, well, first of all, when the Truth for Community first began, in terms of like with YouTube, I was there as I had a YouTube channel already, and I was already talking about things that were outside the box, but I was mostly doing homestead videos. And there was a group of people that were putting out videos, and getting copyrighted was a big thing. And they were changing channels all the time, and they had to, it wasn't like censorship, but things were getting copyrighted. Like if you showed clips of like this, something like this, it would get copyrighted. Like mainstream media would copyright things, CNN, and they would give copyright strikes, and these channels were going up and down all the time. And the people that were putting the stuff out, there was Alex Jones, who was obviously like a shill, but he wasn't as bad as he is now. And he was like a hub, and he had like a kind of an official, newscast. Like he tried to make his like the news, just he was doing truther stuff, and he was ripping off that guy Chris Cooper, that whole thing that most people didn't know about. And then, all the rest of it. And people loved it. Like people were just gravitating to this different kind of content, right? And mainstream media was just done, and they didn't even fucking know it. they had no fucking idea. They had no idea what was happening, right? They had no idea that this stuff was, the whole, their whole thing was crumbling. Like the younger and younger people were just going to all gravitate to this new content, and then the podcast came out, right? And Joe Rogan, kind of a little bit of a truther, whatever you'd call these people. I should come up with a term for it, right? Like these like Hollywood truthers, these mainstream truthers. And he was a little bit more than the rest of these people, a little bit more organic. And then they started to realize how bad they're fucked, and they started to censor all of us, right, as a group. And these people all disappeared. All the people I used to listen to, any of the channels that were out there. And then it was overtaken by right-wing fucking dopes, people who were Republicans. And they weren't really truthers because they weren't changing their fundamental beliefs. And they were just, the thing went to the right, there was all flat earth bullshit, and then there was all the fucking QB bullshit. And then, the Trumper bullshit, because Trump was not a truther. And then, that whole thing swung to the right. And then, these guys realize they have no chance, and their ratings are tanking, and so they realize they had to copy. They started to copy. There's that guy who himself, he was like a local newscaster, and he did Reality Check or something like that. And then CNN did their own show called Reality Check. They started to just copy things like truth bombs, and now it's Pasucky bombs, right? And these people are the very reason why the truth community exists, because nobody want to watch your bullshit, right? And so when the people who start a movement by sucking, like Jen Psaki and Dana Bash and CNN and MSNBC and Fox, when they start a movement because people don't want to watch their bullshit anymore, and there's a counter creative process that comes out, and then this, whatever happens with this in terms of it taking off, at some point they come over and copy it, and then and they try to censor out all the legitimate people and fill it with other people. And then there's people like Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson and all these other people saw, oh, well, there's a whole, this is where everyone's moving, and we're going to move with them. But they didn't do it because they are truth seekers, right? They're people who are seeking the truth. They're doing it because a genre of videos has been created. And, somebody like Don Lemons, I think I'm going to show Don Lemons today, too. He went up to Minneapolis, and, he's such a tool. And Don Lemons gets fired for sucking. Like, he's not even allowed back into this club. And they pay him a lot of money to go away. And he comes up with this, I'm not a part of the legacy media. And it's, you guys aren't here because you were part of it. You were the reason. You're it was an antidote to your sucking, right? And you came back with your virus and try to, now they get all this love from the algorithms, Jen Psaki and these other people. These videos get recommended, and so that's when somebody said, "Why do I have a problem with Candace Owens or any of these people?" I mean, it was specifically for Candace Owens. It's all these people who came into something that we built from there, and they're trying to run their sucky game over here now. They're bullshit over here, right? Like, that's why, because all the people that built this, this genre, most of them are gone. Some of them are even dead, right? Like that guy Jeff C. and some of these other people, like the old school truthers. And I get into my family a little bit. My brother was, before this, he was someone, this movement that came out of Vietnam, right? So when there was a small percentage of people that were doing this. And I knew about these things for years. Like, I knew, some of these things when I was in college back in fucking the 80s and the 90s. So that's how far ago, even my whole life, there was some of this. And they all miss out on the most important part, which I cover here, which is spirituality. Because your relationship to God, the problems that we have now is because people don't have a relationship with God because their religion sucks. And so, if you're going to be a truther, that's the first thing you have to deal with. How to establish a relationship with God, like a real one. like a, not some religious bullshit one or some crazy person who talks to themselves, talks to some fragmented part of their personality and calls it God, right? And so this is why all these things.
Hi, it's Jen.
Hey, Jen.
There's so many things that happen every week that drive me absolutely insane, and I am sure I am not alone. So
Insane in the membrane, so much that you had someone come out and flatten your hair to make it look like you just woke up or some shit.
we want to try something new, and here we are on YouTube. And I wanted to talk about some of the things that
Why are you trying something new, Jen? Why are you trying this new thing, this Pasucky bomb? Why are you trying this, Jen? What's happening? What's happened to your show and your genre of news? You're coming over and you're trying something new.
not get out of my mind that are happening this week. And I want to start with Christine Ohm, because there's many weeks to start with Christine Ohm, but we're going to start with her because there is a clip of something she said on a Sunday show back in February, and you can tell because she talks about Elon Musk in this clip, but it is so representative of how so many people in high positions of power in this government see themselves. So I just want to play that. We'll play it, and I want to talk about it on the other side.
I remember a time when Republicans were very careful.
Why don't you, oh, here she is with Dana Bash on a different network, who has her own. Dana Bash is now doing her own little TikTok videos with her handheld phone bullshit, right? And but they have to go through an editing process and the whole thing, and then go to these shitty networks. But here she is doing a reaction. Look, I'm doing a reaction. I want to try something new. It's new. I'm inventing something right now, where I come in with my Pasucky bombs and my and my cool microphone.
About and worried about the government, particularly unelected people.
We can't trust the government anymore.
Having access to personal data.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
You are the government.
Yes, that's what I'm saying, is that the American people now are saying that we have had our personal information shared and out there in the public.
Elon Musk has access to it.
Yeah, but Elon Musk is part of the administration that is helping us identify where we can find savings and what we can do, and he has gone
Where we can find savings
through the processes to make sure that he has the authority.
She's actually gotten better. Like I didn't know she sucked this bad before. I mean, I did know she sucked, but I didn't know. Wow, she's even worse back here.
You're totally
the president has
comfortable with
granted
it.
him. I am today by the work that he's doing by identifying waste, fraud, and abuse. And his information that he has is looking at programs, not focusing on personal data and information.
Okay, so you can trust the government. Here's the thing. This is the kind of thing they would say nowadays as well, which is why it's been recirculating all over social media. They are the government.
Wow, that's so insightful, Jen. I can see why you're going to this podcast thing because you don't suck anymore. It's so insightful for you to say they are the government. It's like crazy. Like it's so. I mean, nobody saw that when she was saying that, and when she said we can't trust the government, and the fact that she is actually the government now. It's crazy. I mean, thanks for making those for clearing that up for us, for cracking the code. All right, so like this is, everything I talk about. Like this is where the sucky things take over. You had something that was good, and they're like, hey, this is good. Let's go fucking wreck this thing. And they got these corporate fucking media shills talking about their remedial takes and their bullshit ideas that nobody wants to hear. And they just changed the format and the genre. And then they call it a podcast, and then they win. Like Amy Poehler won #1 podcast at the Golden Globes. Amy fucking Poehler, right? And so, they never give it to they don't even give it to Joe Rogan. Has he even won that thing? Like, he had the #1 podcast for years, and his thing is he's a Hollywood fucking fake Hollywood truther. These Hollywood shills and controlled, whatever. And so, it's not like I remember somebody saying to me, aren't you worried about, being killed or being whatever, persecuted? I'm like, well, they'll just take away your channel. They'll just silence you. This is long before they deplatformed Alex Jones and Trump, like that fake deplatforming. But like I said, they'll just do that, right? But now, there's another layer to it where they just take over your thing, and they disappear you with using algorithms, where people can't fucking find you on the internet. So they figured out a way to take something that was organically built out of the reaction of years and years of this weird fucking, where people would sit behind desks with suit and ties and they'd have this certain news person accent and this whole thing, and they just decided, okay, we'll just hijack this thing and pretend it was our thing all along, and we'll just fill it with our suck corporate bullshit, right? And so let me go forward here. So this is the guy she fucking loves. She's not going to say those words here. I guess he's over here.
Get mad and they're just trying to scare people and but why shoot people? You know what really pisses me off is the fact that they detain people, cuff them, and then still beat the out of them. They tell you it's immigrants, only immigrants. It's anybody. I have friends that got detained and all that.
They told her to react up here. Look at it. She's shaking her head, yes.
They were doing was driving home from work. What the
Sounds like you don't fit the definition of the...
No, and I'm not paid to be here like everybody says. What the is that? I gotta work in the goddamn morning, just like everybody else. I'm just here trying to stand up for community, dude. We're all human beings here. I don't give a who you are, where you came from, what color you are. It doesn't matter. This is wrong.
First of all, I love that guy.
Boom. They did a little bleep here. I didn't know this coming.
First of all, I love that.
Let's see if I get that.
This is wrong.
First of all, I
Oh, man. That just sucks. Here. All right. So that's it. Like where she says MS now. Like it's like that's how they bleep. Like they don't even want you to see her lips say fuck, right? I didn't know about this at all. I didn't watch this. All I saw was, hi, it's Jen. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to tear this a new one. Hey, it's Jen. And, then she goes into, what if Obama, and to some extent Biden, who no one wants to talk about anymore, she worked for Biden, did what Trump was doing. And so, but that's how they deal with this, right? This is amazing. Like this thing, I'm going to make this a meme. I fucking love that guy, like this whole thing, and they do this bleep. It's great.
Who you are, where you came from, what color you are, it doesn't matter. This is wrong.
First of all, I love that guy.
This is what they're doing. All right, this is wonderful. She puts the F word in the title, and she, the whole thing, and just, it's so sad. It's so pathetic. So I just ate breakfast. I was talking to my wife about this, and she said, yeah, it's sake bombs. It's like some kind of thing, like a drink. Like if I have heard about that. So they're trying to do a fucking play on words as they steal a genre that's meant to, destroy this, an antidote to their sucking. I just want to show this one more time again because, they wouldn't show this guy here normally, and she wouldn't swear. And it's so contrived, like it's a planned thing. Like she was going to that's her line. Like and that's what, this is supposed to be about being authentic, right? And so, these people want to show you they swear. This whole idea of some guy who is, is a journalist and polished and, came out of Ivy League schools, these guys, Walter Cronkite and, David Brinkley, and these old guys used to read the news, and your local news people, and they're somehow, a cut above the average person. They can be trusted because they're wearing a suit and they don't swear, and they're not like the rest of us riffraff, right? And so they're trying to be authentic, but they do it in a way where it's so contrived. So they bring this guy out who's swearing like a sailor, and, she can't show this on a regular shitty show. And then she's going to try to drop an F-bomb, an F-Pasaki bomb.
Here, I don't give a who you are, where you came from, what color you are. It doesn't matter. This is wrong.
First of all, I love that guy. I don't know who he is. I don't know what his name is. I have no idea what his voting history is, or if he's who he's registered to vote for. Doesn't even matter. He's speaking for.
He's a Democrat.
He's speaking for so many people across the country who may not be political at all. They may not watch MSNBC at night. They may not watch.
They totally don't. Nobody fucking does. What are you talking about? You're lucky to get if they got 1 million viewers, I don't know what her ratings are. I'll check in a second. Well, we're going to go to my voiceover next. Nobody watches MSNBC at night. Even less watch CNN. And not even that many people watch Fox. Like, you guys, I mean, it's a small fraction of the population.
TV at night unless it's football or something else, and that is totally fine. But he is capturing, I think, something so many people across the country are feeling when they watch the video of what is continuing to happen in Minneapolis. And I love that guy. I've been thinking about him ever since. I want to know who he is. Identify him out there, internet.
The internet, find that guy for me. It's not like I have a team of people over here at MS Now that we could just figure out who that guy is, since he's doing an interview with a local station. Please, you internet, figure out who that guy is and let me know, because I love him. I love him. See, I'm a regular old gal doing a regular old thing with my little regular old fucking podcast and my regular thing, and find that fucking guy.
But I can't stop thinking about him ever since.
I've been thinking about all the days and nights when he was saying all those words like fuck, and he said fuck like 5 times. I'm like, oh, that guy, man, with his saying fuck and all that stuff, and how angry he is about this is just fucking wrong, man. It's fucking wrong, bro. This is fucking wrong. I don't, no one cares about what kind of political leanings I have or what I'm doing, what I think about, how I spend my time, whether I just fucking watch football and all that kind of shit. But it's fucking wrong, bro. They're trying to attract a more youthful audience, and even this guy that's swearing is old, older than her. She just fucking loves him. It's so pathetic. Okay, so I'm going to do I did a long narrative. It's like 45 minutes, all these family stories and things, and some stuff about my family. And I found a bunch of the old pictures. I want to start with this one because, I look kind of like I'm posing. And I was doing it as a goof because it was my ex-girlfriend. We went down to, I believe the place is called Newport, Rhode Island, but I might be mistaken. But it's a place in Rhode Island where there's all these mansions, like fucking crazy-ass mansions from like the DuPonts and the, Rockefeller kind of, just really rich people. And they're all in a row, and they're all like a tourist place. And my ex-girlfriend wanted me to pose at the dock, and she was laughing because, I don't like to pose for pictures. And I was just doing this as a goof. And I must have been like 25 years old here. Okay, so this is me and my dog Fluffy, which I talk about extensively in the narration. So this is the picture I was talking about. I was about 7 years old here. There's me in my Chevron, Chevron gas station Little League uniform. Here I am, I think I was like 5 or 6 here at Disney World, shaking hands with Dumbo. I think I was like 5 here. This is the banister. So this banister, my sister decided to go front ways down the thing. Like I slid down this thing backwards, and there was a bump at the end. So it was not advisable to go forwards. I remember my sister, she had like big ass curlers and, like those giant 5-inch curlers for her hair. And she's wearing like some nightgown like thing. And I was like, you don't want to go down this thing forwards, and certainly you don't want to wearing curlers, and you probably want jeans or something. Like, fuck, if you're going to try this thing. She was probably like 16. She was probably in high school. And she went down forwards, and, when you went down backwards, you could slow yourself down with your hands because it was a fucking, it was a straight down banister. And she went flying down the fucking thing and hit the bump and went up in the air about 5 feet and landed. There's a hallway. And she went, ooh. I was like, what do you think was going to happen? You can't stop yourself that way, right? So I was 29, 30 in this picture. I was working at a treatment center, and my coworkers, I was leaving, and they threw me we went out and hung out for after work. And so one of my coworkers wanted me to smile, and I just fucking can't do it. I just can't fake smile. And so I'm not sure if this was an actual smile or this is my best attempt at a fake one. I kind of think it's the second one, but I'm not totally sure. Like, I'm trying to figure out all these pictures. I don't have very many pictures because I had some albums, childhood albums and things, and my ex threw them away. They were stored. And whatever she did with them, I never got them back. So and I'm fine with it. Like I mean, I'd like to have them, but I don't really like looking through all these things because, I get into the whole thing here. It's like a past life. But anyways, so this is me and my parents at the Grand Canyon. So I was probably 35 then. My parents were well into their 80s. They came out to visit me, and we were having a spiritual gathering. My parents wanted to see the Grand Canyon. And we stopped like an hour away from the place to get gas, and my mom locked her keys in the trunk. And I had all these flashbacks about like how incompetent they were and all this stuff, which I get into a little bit in the narrative. So yeah. So this is me and my brother. I have another picture somewhere. I'm not going to go find it. I think this is 2017. We're at the ashram. He was still the caretaker. I'm wearing Carhartt stuff, so it must have been, recently, because I didn't wear this when I was younger. So probably 2017. One of the last times I think I saw him. This is me and my mom and my sisters. I think I must have been, I don't know, in college probably, early 20s. But it seems like we're in Florida there, but I don't think we were. So I don't know. These are me and my parents. I think I must have just got back from India, which would make sense time-wise. I'm really skinny in this. I lost a shit ton of weight in India. I got sick there. And so I would think this is 1995 or 6. So I must have been about, I don't know, 32, 33 years old here. This is the ashram in Molina, Georgia, the other one. The same one I was with my brother in that picture. There's the bookstore in the background. So there's pretty much my whole family. Must have been a wedding. My nephews are there in the front, and there's a few, like my sister's husband's there. My sister's husband's brother. So some of the people, but pretty much everyone else I think is part of my family. I'm in the back. I must have been in high school because I was parting my hair in the middle. And so, yeah, I'm the tallest one there. But anyways, there they are. Okay, so I got all these stories I want to tell. I'm just going to do it here, and then I'll get back to whatever I'm doing with the other things, why they're fresh in my mind. So I was thinking about these things. Well, first of all, my wife and I watched this show on Amazon called Con Man, starring Alan Tudyk. You'll recognize this guy. He was in that show Firefly as the pilot, and then he made a show where he was an alien, which was pretty good. It was comedy. It kind of sucked a little bit, but there's some funny bits. He was an alien who could like shapeshift and look like a person, but it was a comedy. And then he made this show called Con Man where he's going to these sci-fi conventions because he was on a show that was half a season long, and they're like 10-minute episodes, which I kind of like. My wife and I, it's pretty funny. It's a little goofy, but it's like any sitcom. And he did a bit kind of like my bit. Thank you for your service, a little differently, and it's weird because But then he said something I can't remember what it is, and I was going to talk about this yesterday when I remembered, and it was kind of an obscure thing. And then I was watching something else, and they were referencing the same thing. I talk about that how that happens all the time. It was clearly like these obscure. Why would I watch these two things at the same time? And something that maybe I was thinking about. And that kind of thing happens all the time. And so it happened where I was thinking about my family, my sisters and some other thing. And I got a comment from somebody that popped in last night. I was already going to tell these stories, which, oftentimes this happens where I'm thinking about something and somebody in the comment section says the same thing, and I'm scrolling through the comments here to find it, but it popped in last night and I can't find it. So let me hit pause here, and now here it is. You don't talk about your sister or other siblings that much, not as much as your brother that served, who got divorced on his son's birthday. So That's not accurate at all. My brother didn't get divorced on my son's birthday. He left his wife. My brother had agoraphobia, which I'll talk about here in a bit. And he was a Vietnam vet, and he was like kind of I talk about my brother because he was one of the old school truthers. He had an AM radio show, and he also did my meditation with me. He started Sajmarg meditation a month after I did, and he was the only family member that was kind of still in my life. In the past, I don't know, since I've been married, I was not in contact with my sisters, which I'll explain a bit. Like, not in a hostile way, just, they just weren't in each other's lives. I don't know if they were some of them had, maybe all of them, I don't know, some of them, 3 of them. Maybe some of them were mad at me, I don't know. But I just, it wasn't even on my radar with what I was going through with my ex. But my brother, I would see him from time to time. And he, did the meditation, and we would talk. And we had that thing in common. And my brother was also an old school truther. And so, we had that in common. My brother had an influence in me, certainly what I do here. There's some of my brother in me when I do this. He was good socially, and he could good storyteller, and these things. But my brother didn't get divorced on my middle nephew's birthday. He left his wife for a younger woman after having agoraphobia for years. And it's like his agoraphobia was gone, and he dated this really crazy woman. So that's, I think I've told this story a number of times. So that's, the question's not accurate, right? But I had been thinking about my sisters a little bit. And then I was up thinking about them even more when I was like not sleeping last night. Today's 11 degrees and windy, and like our chickens are hiding someplace. We have this old barn. And like I usually throw some food out the back door for them in the morning. And you can tell how cold it is when they don't come, where I have to bring the food to them because they're just all bundled up. Chickens fluff out their feathers and they just try to get through. But it's 11 degrees and windy. We were watching a football game last night, and the local station issued a cold warning. And I looked at the weather, and it's going to be, there's a certain time where, January is always the coldest month, and we had some really cold days, but mostly a mild winter. And it gets up to 38 one day, and that day is windy. And the wind is what kills you here, because we go on these walks and in the pasture, and there's a couple ponds around us. We have a small pond, and our neighbors each have a small pond. And, they're frozen solid, and the wind blows in there, and it gets even colder. This Arctic weather that hits. It's gloomy. There's sun out today. I can see the blue sky, but almost every day is gray, and it's just the winter starts to drag. And, we've gone through most of it, like we're almost through January. But at least the next 10 days, there's one day that's 39, and every other day is below freezing. And some days are negative, like -5, -1 at night, and it's just fucking brutal, right? Just, it's the hard part of the year. And, that had nothing to do with why I was just not sleeping, but last night I had a little trouble falling asleep. I meditated. I was having some health issues. It's almost like I got a very mild case of COVID. And the COVID stuff is that, when I ever get sick before, sleep was always the remedy. But with COVID, it's the opposite. When I lay down, I would get dizzy. My heart would race, or I'd skip a beat, and I'd have trouble breathing. I had COVID 3 times, and I just still have it. I'm trying to get rid of whatever spike protein is left. And I've tried various things. And, I can't say I'm sick, but I'm feeling maybe a little bit under the weather. And then, this stuff flares up every once in a while. I have a mild case of COVID at night when I go to sleep kind of thing. And during the day, I feel mostly okay. A little low energy at times. But anyways, so there's all that. And there's this one story I meant to tell in another narration, right, that I didn't tell. But I had, my best friend from high school, and we had a friend who, it was more my best friend from high school's friend. This guy kind of annoyed me. He was, I think kind of annoyed everybody. And he wanted to go, he had a boat, like a little sailboat. And he wanted to go with us invite us to go to, out some lake. And we went in his car. The boat, I think, fit on the roof of his car, like a really tiny sailboat that 3 people could barely sit on. And it was a small lake, right? That, And so it must have been, I think it must have been like during the summer or whatever, because it's Connecticut's cold. And, it's just, you don't swim in lakes most of the year. But whatever it was, we went on the sailboat. And there was no, like, life preservers, and there was no, like, safety protocol. And not that I gave a shit about that back then, because I didn't, because I was in high school, and I thought it was indestructible. And so we went on the sailboat, and my friend, the other dude, dove into the water, and I wanted to be on the boat because it was uncomfortable. Like, I like to swim. So I jumped in, right? And the boat just fucking took off. Like, a wind hit it, and it was going, like, the thing was going like a mile an hour. I mean, because with the weight of three, we were teenagers on the boat. And so the thing was really slow. Like, and the idea was we were going to go swimming or whatever it was. But as soon as we jumped in, the boat just fucking took off. Like, it was like fucking, like, it was going like 50 miles an hour, like some crazy speed. Sailboats they're finicky, and the whole thing was, and we started to swim after it. And it was just, it was just dusting us, right? It was just separating. And as fast as we could swim, it was not like it was quadrupling the distance between us. And then we got to a point where we stopped, and I'm exhausted. And had we swam right for the shore initially, it would have been easy for us to make it there. We're all in pretty good shape, as a good swimmer. But we had exhausted ourselves swimming after the boat, right? And I looked at the shore, and I'm like, I don't think I can make it. Like, I'm fucking tired. We're treading water. I could barely do that. And I'm like, I'm going to fucking drown. like it just hit me. Like, I'll start swimming there. I may have some energy left. And, doing the backstroke and maybe, whatever it is. But, you start to panic or whatever. Whatever happens when you're tired. And I'm like, fuck, I'm not going to make it. Like, fucking. And all of a sudden, somebody pulls up with a boat, like a family. I don't even remember. I can't remember them at all. But this mystery boat pulls up and drives us to the sailboat. And, I think the wind died at some point. We just jumped on it and we sent it back to the thing. And, the kid who had the boat was blaming me for jumping off last. Like, I fucking knew the thing was going to take off. And I'm like, you fucking shitting me, you piece of shit? We almost fucking died, right? And, I didn't really care. Like, I was just happy to be alive. Like, I didn't care. Like, the guy was being a total douche about the thing. But we got drunk later on, like maybe a couple months later. And there must have been something subconsciously, like there needed to be some kind of, we were playing this game quarters, where you would bounce a quarter off the table. And if you got the quarter in, you could point with your elbow for some fucking stupid-ass reason and make somebody chug the beer. Like, there's a big beer in there, and you're putting this disgusting quarter in there. And I had played the game a couple times, and for some reason I wanted to get good at it. So I was at home and I practiced, and I was good at shooting a basketball, and, I'm good at things like that, whatever it is. And I practiced to where, I'm sober practicing this fucking game. Because I wanted to fucking crush my, I don't know what it was, and I got good at it. And there was a time we were playing quarters that I could, I would make like 20 in a row, and people were chugging beers, like I was making people vomit, because there's, because it's usually people get so drunk, it would get harder and harder for them to, you lose control of your whatever it is. But I had practiced, and I had just to, I would get into a zone with it, and I would just, it wasn't hard to, I bet I could do it now, and I would be able to do roll off 20 shots in a row, and then just, make the same person drink, whatever it was. To where the person would have to quit or throw up or whatever, right? And so we're playing there, and, the guy sitting next to me, the guy with the boat, and he's just being annoying. And, I'm just looking at him like I fucking hate this guy. Like, I just, and I think it was because we almost died. This guy was, he's like, I have a sailboat and wanted to show off. I don't know what it's like. He was a very superficial, just a whatever person. And so, I just punch him. It's just fucking, I'm totally unprovoked, for everybody else. But, I was thinking about the other day, Like I haven't thought about this in years, but I realized there was some kind of thing in there. Like he almost fucking killed us, right? He almost killed 3 people with his, like not. I mean, kids do unsafe things, so wasn't like all being I wasn't all that concerned about it mentally. But there was this miracle boat that showed up. Like it was just happened to be there. Like these people saw that we were out stranded. They saw what was going on, and like they were probably drinking. I mean, these are like whatever it was, and they had a boat. Like it just happened to be out there. There's like 2 other boats on this small lake. Maybe even this was the only one. I don't even know. It was a small little lake, big enough that we would have, I mean, it would have been hard to make it to shore. But like there's just something there, right? And it almost like nature needed a fucking response to this guy, like this, like for being a fucking douche, like whatever it was, like a wake up call. And so I punched him, like, and I mean, I didn't think about that at the time. I didn't even know why. I was just really drunk, and there was some kind of this anger just ruled up in me. Maybe he even told the story or whatever, and and I was like, I mean, the fact that he tried to blame me for something where I mean, there was no sense that we weren't supposed to jump on. Like, when other boats that I've gone on, you would swim. Like, you would go snorkeling or you jump out, I haven't been on, I don't really like boats. Like, I like the ocean or water from the shore. Boats are they're small and they're uncomfortable and there's waves and shit. I was in the Virgin Islands when I lived there. And I lived there I lived in the Virgin Islands for a while. And my girlfriend met this couple, and they were from some other, wherever they were. People who came to Virgin Islands and we were living there. Like we were there for about 3 or 4 months. A hurricane had just hit, so the tourist business was dead. So it was kind of just an unpleasant place to be. A beautiful place, but just corrupt and kind of scary. And this couple had found a boat where they were going to go snorkeling. And they wanted us to go with them. And we're on this boat, pristine, clear blue water, and the ocean's calm, right? And we're on the boat, and all of a sudden, like a 10-foot fucking wave came out. Like, I mean, it seemed like it was 10 feet. Just one wave. Like, the whole rest of the ocean's calm. And we see it coming towards the boat, and someone yells, "Brace yourself," right? And the fucking boat goes up in the air, and then just drops. And it was like we were airborne for a little bit, and the boat fucking hits. And it's just all of us are just like fucked up. Like, my knee got, my knee's bleeding and, this whole thing. And I'm like, I don't really like boats. Like, I went on the boats with my grandfather, went deep sea fishing. But, it's not, people get boats and like to go fishing and do things. But usually the fish are close to the shore anyway, right? Or some structure, where fish hang out. And, so, I mean, I guess water skiing, there's some other things. But mostly you're just stuck out in the ocean in a small little area it's confined. And the ocean is fucking, I mean, I guess lakes are better, but the water's not as good. But the ocean can turn on you. Anyways. But I'm telling that story. There's a kid when I went to college that he was really racist, like, in a different way. He was from Barbados. I went to school in college in Boca Raton, which was, in Boca Raton, Florida. It was a 2-year school. They called it Camp Boca. It was like I don't know what it was. Not a legitimate school. And they had a lot of island people and people from foreign, it was like probably 30% foreign students. And this kid was from the Barbados. It was my roommate. He looked like he was 12 years old. And he was really annoying, really immature. Barbados, yeah, he was from the Barbados. And he lived in a place where, there were such racial tensions that he bragged about, like, carrying machine guns. And he said, just in case we have to shoot the N-words, right? The N-words, like they were shooting them, like with, they're shooting black people with like machine guns, like they'd carry them. They had electric fences, and because there's, it's kind of like an apartheid. And he had a South African accent. And he looked like he was in, elementary school, like this small little blonde kid it was just annoying. And he had a friend who was also immature, and I came into the room, and they were like, he was on his bed, and the guy was on my bed, and he was dry humping it. And I'm like, get the fuck off my bed, you fucking, like, this is one of the weird fucking dudes, right? And so, like, there was just like an anger building towards us. And I was playing this game Galaga. I mean, I disliked this kid. I was just, I like hated him. I was like seething with, like just whatever. And I was playing this video game called Galaga, and he was just trying to annoy me. He was like, "What's up, punk?" It was like he sat across from me, and was just like, you know, teasing me in like a really, gay way, like just just immature or whatever. And he kept on saying it. And I just slapped him like fucking hard. And we were in this area where there's like a little, rec center for this college, and there's probably about 20 people, and everybody just stopped and went silent. I mean, it was so fucking loud. And then I went back to my room, and he was moved out, right? But those are the two things I remember, like similar, where somebody just, they deserved like they just did something that needed a response, right? Like just the way they were being, like just who they were as people, and and I felt like I was administering it because, I mean, the way I look at it now, because it wasn't like stuff I normally would do. Like it was just these two incidences when I was in high school and in college. But there's these events that I look back at now, and I didn't understand what's going on. Like I didn't understand the dynamics, right? There was some kind of, whatever it was. Like another example is my sister brought home a puppy, a white puppy that I named Fluffy. And I had a picture of me with it, somewhere. I'll put up some of these pictures of me as a kid here. One of them will be with my, whatever the pictures I have. And I'll just rotate the pictures. And it's me with this dog and Fluffy. And, I really always been kind of a dog person. And we got another puppy, and I think later on, and then we gave that one up. And I think my parents were mad because I wasn't able to train it. I was like 7 years old. But my sister just brings home a puppy. It's like people were giving it away. Maybe it was going to be, put in the pound. And, I love that dog. And my parents one day, this dog is gone. And they were like, it's deaf. I mean, my sister brought home a puppy from like, she was like just maybe an adult. She was an adult hippie. My brother was in Vietnam. And, he was exposed to some of the hippie stuff, but he was kind of anti-hippie because the hippies were against Vietnam vets and were being fucking totally shitty towards them. And so they, there's an opposition there. And, my sister had wrote him a letter when he was in Vietnam saying, me and my friends were protesting the Vietnam War, and I've just felt connected to you there. And, bullets are going over his head, and he's banging prostitutes. And, like my brother would say, people would ask him, did you learn any Vietnamese when you were in Vietnam? And my brother would go, yeah, sucky fucky $5. So, I don't think she was really with him with, like that. He said he got these weird letters for the, the family was over in Vietnam and, this thing. But she brought home this puppy, and then my parents said it was deaf. And, at some point, my adult life, I went, that puppy wasn't deaf, right? They were saying we can't train it because it's deaf and it doesn't hear, And I'm like, they just told me that shit to take a puppy away, that my sister brought home a puppy without fucking telling my parents, right? And so, I mean, without asking permission, like, it was a fucked up thing to do on her part, and, the whole thing. But there's a picture there. My dad had, it was a girl named dog, and she was licking my face, and I said, I think she loves me, like this is, it's like a little fucking kid. And so my dad would write these captions on the photos, like when whatever it was. But I was thinking about some things happened with my family, and, when my oldest son was like 4 or 5, and I just had 3 kids. My youngest son hadn't been born yet. We went over to my sister's house, and they were having a family thing. And my brother would always say he was going to show up, but never would because he had agoraphobia. But, he didn't have any more. He had left his wife, and he was running around. He was on a radio show. He was traveling all over the place, so he had no excuse. And he said he was going to be there, but he didn't show up. It was typical. Like, we had a family therapy where, I got caught smoking pot, and my parents decided to have family therapy. And, in the family therapy, my dad was just complaining about everybody. I remember my sister, one of them, crying. And they're all angry, and the whole family was, like, mad. And it was supposed to be about me smoking pot, and I didn't say a fucking word. And I remember the first time I went, I was, like, stoned out of my mind. My mom was like, we're going to therapy. And I'm blitzed. And I don't think they have any idea. And we go there, and this guy, he's missing his middle finger. It's just like gone, and it's like totally gone. Like it's not like it's partially there. There's just a fucking, like the finger's gone at the bottom, like by the hand, like not by the knuckle. And so there's a gap, and the guy's smoking a pipe. And the pipe is just sitting there between this gap and his finger, which his middle finger's missing. And he's like foreign, like he's Irish or something. He must have been some kind of Catholic guy. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching the guy smoke his pipe. And I think he was maybe blowing smoke rings and listening to everybody. And, there's just no communication. And all of my siblings, I think, they were all angry at my parents, like for their just blatant, like graphic incompetence, like almost criminal incompetence as people. And I think they were all giving input about, what they all had opinions of what they should have been doing all along with them. And so his influence in me and my parents were like, and also the IQ thing and the test I took, my parents were already uncomfortable with me. So they were already incompetent and just, inept. My dad was, narcissistic, and he was like a child. And my mom was an only child, and she was immature. She was a little bit better than my dad, but still. And I didn't know it then, but I see it now. Like, I was an energy source for my parents, and I was the only reason that they were staying together, which they were both maybe resentful about. Because I moved down to Florida, and they were already, on the verge of splitting up. And then they moved down. My dad retired and moved down. They moved down there afterwards, which, I broke free for them because, you get away from your parents, and you're like, holy shit, that situation's fucked up. And so then I moved back up to Connecticut from Florida the next year to live with my brother for a little bit. And then I was in my second attempt at college. There's a chance for me to play Division I basketball, this whole thing. And that just, it failed for various reasons, right? So, but my parents were then down in Florida, and I was in Connecticut with the rest of my siblings. And occasionally I would go over. My brother had 3 kids, and they were, older. My brother was the oldest. And they were like my little brothers. My oldest nephew was 6 years younger than me. And my next sibling, my youngest sister, was 10 years older than me. So, like, we were a totally different generation. I was Generation X, and they were boomers. And each of my sisters had 2 kids. And occasionally I would drive over. I'd just show up and visit them. But then there became this narrative like I wasn't spending as much time with them. Like, so I had 3 sisters and 1 brother. And my nephews were playing basketball. They all played basketball in college in one way or another. And we would go to parks and play basketball. And I was, living close to my brother. And, I lived there with him. And my sisters just had little kids. They were toddlers and babies. And, I'd go over and spend a little time with them. But, we weren't even close when I was a kid, right? And I was thinking about all this stuff. Because, this thing happened where years later, I show up with my ex and my kids at my sister's house. And the kids started, my nieces were teasing my kids a little bit the way my family would. And my sister's husband was kind of a douche. But it was more of my family stuff. And every time I saw my family, there'd be like some desire to see them beforehand. And it'd be kind of cool for like a half hour. Then I'm like, oh my God, this is why I don't spend time with these fucking people, right? And, my sisters were always angry at each other or angry at one of my parents. There was always some drama. Like one sister wasn't talking to the other one. They were close. They were all like 2 years apart, right, in age. And there was all this drama, and they all had kind of different personalities. And so, but I was like, I don't want my kids to be around this. Like, my family, and my family would bring out like that version of me that no longer existed, that grew up in my family. So I just, I was like, I'm not, and I was living far away anyway. So this was, I was back in Massachusetts for a short period of time, and then we moved out of there. But there was some like anger towards me, like just, I wasn't connecting them, but none of them reached out to me. None of them said, could you come over? Or we haven't seen you in a while. Like, there was never anything like that. Of course, we didn't have cell phones and emails, but they all had my number. And, so occasionally I would just drive over their house, like maybe twice a year. And that was me putting out effort. And I had a fucking life. I had a social life. I was in college, I was regularly partying, doing what college kids do. And I worked 3 jobs. My brother got me a job opening up a town hall. That I'd get up at 5 in the morning. And then I worked, at Wawa's, which was like a convenience store. And I was Mr. Wawa at my college campus for a bit. And, I was playing in a couple basketball leagues, and I was, and I ref volleyball, and I had no idea how to do that. And one of the teams was always yelling at me in Polish, right? Like this kind of thing. Like I had, multiple jobs, and I was doing multiple things. And, occasionally it'd come to my mind to go visit one of my sisters. But that was just 100% on me, and I'm not social, and I didn't give a shit about, family stuff. I had no real desire. Just it was something that I was like, oh, I'll go see my sister today. And then, for whatever reason, they were pissed at me because I wasn't reaching out to them and trying to spend time with them. And I'm like, fuck, I have, all these things going on, right? And so, all of them knew I was struggling with my ex, whatever my mom knew, which wasn't all that much. And none of them reached out. There was no, sending gifts to the kids. Like I think one sister sent Christmas cards every year. But there was no, I had spent time with all of their kids. Like I had, bought them presents and, showed up for birthdays or whatever, at different times when I was there in the area. And, I just said, I'm not social. Like I'm not clerical, like that's when I've been tested in terms of my, my, whatever, the Myers-Briggs and those kind of psychological tests. The thing I do worst is like being a secretarial stuff, like, those filling out forms and, keeping in those kind of routines and, thank you notes and all that kind of shit. Like I'm just horrible at all that kind of stuff, right? Networking. And so, to expect me to be the one that carries the relationship is like silly. Like nobody would think that. And, I didn't grow up with them. My older sister was in the house when I was, but she was like a teenager. She was 10 years older than me. And so, she used to babysit me at times and, these other things. And she, we had kind of and we had lots of fights, which I would always lose because she was 10 years older than me, and I could never understand why. I would get like so mad because I couldn't believe that she was beating me up like fucking. I'm not sure what the fights were about, but I just remember, like, I can't believe I'm losing to a girl. My sister was a good athlete. She was just 10 years older, right? I could kick her ass now, though. But I was thinking about this, and so, I wasn't like a person to them. Like, this just came up yesterday, a couple days ago. So my older sister, when I was a kid, she'd come home from college, and she was a social worker, real liberal hippie, and she read Watership Down to me and James and the Giant Peach, I think, and maybe another book. Like she would come home on the weekends and read these books to me. So like that was pretty cool, and we did some things. But she took me camping, and like there were things where she, there was these things that happened where I had no say in them, and I just realized this like yesterday, like I had no sovereignty. And so my sister took me camping. I'm like 7 years old, and we're out in like somewhere by the ocean in Rhode Island. My sister must be in college or whatever it is. And at one point, my sister just starts crying, and it's fucking pouring out, like fucking torrential rains. And she just starts crying, and she leaves, and she goes and she's in the car. And I'm in the fucking tent. I'm like a 7-year-old kid, and fucking don't know where I am and what I'm doing. And my sister just fucking starts crying and fucking leaves and goes and sits in the car. And I'm like, what the fuck, right? So, I had limited comprehension ability and whatever. So I remember like having to walk through the pouring rain, and there was puddles of water. And you know how like if you're by the ocean, there's that certain kind of sandy like soil, and the grass is kind of sparse, and there's like a kind of a black, mixed with sand, kind of a, if you've seen like, areas where there's just off the beach, like there was some woods we were camping in, and I remember looking at my socks, and they were getting black, like this sandy dirt on them, and they're getting soaked because it's like torrential rains. And I'm walking over, I'm like absolutely soaked. And I'm knocking on the door trying to get her out of the car because like fucking I'm a little kid by myself in the middle of fucking woods. So I really didn't think about it, but it formed an impression. Like whatever happened, whatever the thing was, we're back home. I don't remember the rest of the trip. But, it was her idea to go camping. And later on, I heard that she said that I accidentally hit her in the nose and she started to cry and then she ran into the car. But that didn't happen because, like, fucking, I wasn't flailing my arms around. Like, it was late at night. We had, like, some kind of flashlight. Maybe she was reading or telling, whatever it is. What happened was she had a panic attack because, she was probably realizing that she wasn't really feeling good about. Sometimes when you go out camping and you have this, thin little tent out there and you hear all the noises that are going on, it's disconcerting. And she freaked out and decided to bail on me in the middle of a fucking torrential rainstorm and go into the safe car and just sit there and cry, right? Like fucking. And so, just a kind of a weird thing. But then I remember there was like a couple other visits where I had no say in it. Like my sister was like, "Oh, she's just like, I should just go visit her." And I went. There's some guy there who was teaching karate, and I went and took karate because I wanted to take karate. Whatever, I was probably like 9 or 10 years old. But there was another time I went to stay with my sister, and she brought me over to this hippie lady's house, and they just left me there, like just fucking, and my parents just said, "You're going to see your sister." Like there was no sense that I had any say in it, right? And I don't know if something was going on with my parents or whatever was happening. They asked her to take me, or, that part. It's, there's no way I could know. And she lived up in Massachusetts, probably about an hour or two away from where I lived in Connecticut. And I'm just sitting in this house watching fucking TV, and there's nobody there, and I'm like fucking, like 7th grade, 6th or 7th grade, and I'm just watching. And she had a couple of kids, and they were like, one of the kids, they were like potheads. And they were probably 15, they were 16, old. Like they were teenagers. And they decided to like try to scare me by taking an aerosol can, like one of those things and you light the thing on fire. And they're standing out there like 5 teenage kids. Like they're like, trying to be quiet or whatever. And I was probably absorbed in the TV because I didn't know they were there. And all of a sudden this flame shoots into this room from, this aerosol can where you hold up a lighter to it. And they're like, and then they're like, "Hey, we're trying to fuck with you, it was cool. And peace out." Like, like, and I'm like, what the fuck am I doing here? And I'm thinking about now, like, there's these things that happen. So then later on, when my first niece was born to my older sister, so I think she was a year younger than the youngest of my brother's sons. And I had taken care of my nephew a little bit, not taking care of him, but like hung out with them when they were babies, right? So I was, a little bit, I had a little bit knowledge of babies, but I hadn't changed a diaper, I hadn't babysitted. And my sister, my mom just says, "Oh, you're going to see your sister?" And her and her husband, who's kind of a real douche, they wanted me to babysit, right? And so they must have had some thing they had. And they were going out, and I don't know fucking shit about babies. I don't know how to, I've never fed one or changed a diaper. And she was probably like 1.5 years old. And, like maybe spent a little bit of time. But I wasn't familiar to her. And she's like crying. Like maybe she was sleeping when they left, but she wakes up and she's crying. And she wants her parents. And I'm fucking an unqualified babysitter, right? And so like I picked her up and brought her outside and I said, "There's birds." And she's like, "Oh, there's birds?" And that stopped her crying for like 5 minutes. And I would bring her back inside and, put her some toys down. She'd start crying again. Really crying, like fucking, and I don't know what to do. And so I just kept on bringing her outside. And she'd stop for a little bit when she saw birds. There's like some fucking crows and shit outside. She's a little, kid with limited cognitive abilities. But it was like 4 hours of that, right? And I didn't agree to this. Like I was never asked, "Do you want to babysit?" And there was no money exchange. Like it was just like going to your sister's house and they had something and like fucking, And so then a couple of years after that, my parents wanted me to visit them. And I think I might even drove up there. I'm not even sure. Because I was like, in high school. And I don't know what year. I don't know. I was probably a freshman, so I probably didn't drive. And they want me to paint their garage and they're going to give me $100. And again, there was no conversation. Like there was no respect towards me to say, "Hey, do you want to paint your sister's garage?" And I would said, "Fucking no," right? What do I know about painting? And so I'm up on the ladder, and there was this old garage / barn they had, whatever it was. And, I'm there and there's like multiple wasp nests all across the roof line. And I'm stuck on the ladder and I'm getting stung like crazy by wasps. And I get down like, I don't want to do this, right? And my brother-in-law comes out, and what they wanted was cheap labor. Like they couldn't afford to hire a painter; would have cost them like $1,000, whatever. So they decided that they didn't want to do it, and so they just told my parents, and my parents was like farming me out as like slave labor. And so and I'm just remembering this like last night or two night, yesterday. And my brother-in-law, who must have been like some cheap fuck, and they're both hippies, like whatever they are, and he comes out, he's like, there's just little wasps. So I'm like, you go fucking do it, right? I don't even want to be here. I don't even know why I'm fucking here. Nobody asked me about this. I didn't participate this at all. This is, and I'm realizing now how disrespectful this was, right? Because, I didn't see them for. I mean, we'd have these family things. I didn't really, like the guy that we weren't friends. And then my sister and I, she would read me some stories when I was little, but other than that, we didn't have much of a relationship. Like I didn't know them, like other than just see them once in a while. He was a Jewish guy, the guy who's doing the whatever it is, he's orchestrated me to do free labor, and he's like, all right, well, I'll go spray wasp spray up there, and they wanted me to go back up there, and I didn't get stung again, but I'm like, I got paint all over me. I've never painted anything before. Fucking, fuck is this, right? And so then there are these periods, and I come back. I was eating macrobiotic food. I was in college. I remember my brother-in-law tried to make fun of me because of something I said, about sugar, something my brother had told me, because I was, trying to get healthy. I was, using a lot of drugs and drinking, and I was physically eating a lot of fucking junk food and things, and I was just breaking down a little bit physically. And then I started doing the meditation years later, and he tried to make fun of me for that, right? There were some, there was some weird fucking stereotypical making fun of, and I'm like, boy, these people are horrible. Like I just, and I recognize the part of me that was a part of this family, this unit, and I was like, I don't want my kids to experience that, right? I'm trying to, get rid of that stuff myself, like all the negativity. My dad, mom were incompetent losers, and the family was them. There's a lot of anger there, a lot of infighting, a lot of drama. Like I said, my sisters wouldn't talk to each other at times. There's always some things going on, and so I mean, it's just they're not like my soul family. We're not really connected. When my daughter committed suicide, I told my brother told his sons, and they all called me. And, we hadn't talked in a while, and some of them had listened to my show occasionally. And they had commented about that. We had some good conversations. And then my middle sister called me, and she had cancer. She married an ex-priest. And the other two didn't. And, I didn't want them to call because, like I said in my video, nothing anybody's going to say is going to make this better. And really, I just don't want to talk about it because that's how I deal with things. So I wasn't bummed that they didn't call, but it's fucked up that they didn't call, right? Like, it's just, but for years I was struggling and there was no connection and there was no reaching out, which is fine because, there's nothing there. Like, I'm not bummed about it. But it's just, it's negativity. But I was thinking about these things where, like, they wanted me to paint their garage. Like, what the fuck? There's no asking me, right? I mean, they gave me $100. It took me like 2 days to fucking paint this fucking thing, right? For like $100. And, I think I had part-time job, so I didn't really need the money like that, that way. My younger sister called me for some reason, this is my mom died and they all went to the funeral and I was in India. And so we didn't see each other then. And my younger sister called me that my daughter committed suicide like 4 years later. And I don't know why my younger sister, she's older than me, but the youngest one. And she was like, yeah, I didn't know how to talk to you. I didn't call you. I'm like, it's fine. Whatever. But like, there's just nothing there, right? But this idea that they would, like my parents were clearly using me energetically. Like I was propping them up in some way, right? And I don't know how to describe it, but I, can see it now. And like I said, they split up for about 3 years and then they got back together. And, I got in the middle of that where they would call me and I would, I was telling my mom, I didn't want to go back. Like I was a fucking nightmare, right? But she went back anyway. My dad would call up and say, we got to get rid of these 2 houses. We're living in 2 houses. And, because it's fucking, there was the retirement funds were going, people retire and they think they have so much money, but then inflation kicks in, right? And they realize they're fucked, right? But I was, reflecting on this from the standpoint of, what I've become since escaping from my family. Like just, and every time I would see them, and it would be years, like I wouldn't talk to anybody, I wouldn't see them. And even with my brother. My brother came into the Sajmarg meditation and he didn't feel anything. Like I immediately had felt a transmission, and some people feel it, and some people, it's also when you come in and there's some things. But my brother was oblivious to it. He was just too hard, like too gross. And it was a thing where he was, jealous of me that I could feel it. He couldn't, but then he would call me up and he would complain about it. And after a while, I was like, I wish I didn't tell him about this. But he ended up going to India and becoming the caretaker of the ashram. And he became kind of a celebrity because he's got a big personality and, he's got a lot of energy and he's pretty loud. I'm quieter and, I'm more, introverted and whatever. And so most of the people thought like he told me about it or whatever, and I didn't care. But like he was he almost every time he talked about it, he was complaining about not feeling anything or complaining about the other people. Like every time he talked about it, he was just negative and complaining. But he wouldn't tell the master of the system, for years. And he would just dump all this stuff on me, and it was depressing. And, it was already, like, it was some of the stuff I was interested in knowing. But after a while, it was just a one-sided conversation where he'd talk 80% of the time. And, and I would just, when I would see him, it'd be kind of good. But then I'd be like, I got to get away from him. Like, it was just, and he was, gross and making bad decisions still. And, like he had a weird, sexual addiction and this other things. And just kind of a hostile personality. And so, then the stuff hit with Dodgy, and I realized Dodgy's a piece of shit. I'm like, my brother's never going to be able to get there. He's got too much of a soldier mentality, and, he won't admit that Dodgy's crumbled. And we had he tried to reach out and contact me, but I'm like, I'm not talking to anybody who's still with Dodgy. Like, it's just, like the whole thing. So, I mean, that was the last of the connections I had to my family, and it was kind of a relief because, I'm not like them, like whatever I was in that family, and it was, holding me back, right? It was just whatever, and I was being, like I said, like I wasn't, for me to be shipped around like that, like, oh, just, hey, you're going to see your sister, she needs you to fucking do some free labor for her, like fucking, this kind of thing, which, I might have done if we were, I mean, if they had asked me, I would help, like I'm not a, whatever it was, but I wasn't asked to participate in any way, and it's just, it was the whole family dynamic was fucked up. My parents were incompetent, but also really selfish and very myopic. Nobody thought about anybody else. And, they didn't help me become what I'm becoming. I mean, what I became, only in a negative way, like not intentionally. Like my dad was a guidance counselor and, no one was there to sort of advise me, and I didn't respect them and didn't, at that point wouldn't have listened to them anyway because they were incompetent boobs. I mean, when you're failures and you're sucking at life and you're completely incompetent, you can't help other people succeed. There's this loser energy there, like an underachieving energy in my family. And so, like all that stuff. So it's it was a burden. But, like I was thinking about it, how like I was always separate from the rest of my family. Like, my siblings, they grew up as kids together. And so they had experiences. Like my brother said, one time his, my oldest sister was just walking in the cold, Connecticut fucking winters to school. And she was in front of him. And he could kind of see her, like, just depressed and, because my family sucked, and walking, cluelessly and just lost. And he was like, like he had this sense like he couldn't help her. Like he was just, like they could have been walking together or whatever, but like just, all these, each individual person struggling with this non-family, right? Where they're, my dad really wasn't capable of love, and my mom married him because she said she felt sorry for him. Like, what the fuck is that? And, and then being, Catholic in a mostly not good way. I mean, my mom did become kind of a spiritual person, and she started did the meditation for a few years that me and my brother did. And so, there's that aspect of it. So, I mean, other than my mom being a spiritual person, which is kind of an important part of the Sajmark system, that you have a mom that's, devotional, like, no matter what that is, like even if she's just religiously, sucky or whatever. But, they were just so incompetent. And, everyone in the family was like lost and, trying to figure things out. And without any really parental guidance. And, I have all these kind of funny memories of things that happen. And like, it was just all this like kind of screwy stuff and just, you know, but none of it's like good family stuff, right? Like none of it's like, there was this loving connection between family members, right? There just wasn't that. Like there wasn't this thing where people, just value the relationship. They were always, mostly adversarial, like, which kind of explains the way I am. People are off put by the way I am, but we used to make fun of each other, and everything was kind of hostile. And so, and then growing up in that part of the country, Connecticut, that area between New York and Boston, this is the way people are there. So more, like there's just not this, this affection, like family affection, and genuinely liking to be with the other people. My parents were like in their 40s when they had me, like mid 40s, and there was a miscarriage before me and after me, and so there was these 4 kids that that was there, and then 10 years went by, and then I was born, and my parents were just completely broken, and they were NPCs that gave up on life, and clueless, and no real direction. I mean, my mom put some effort into her spiritual pursuit, so there was some consciousness there. But my dad was just, like he was just a sheeple with a superiority complex, or inferiority or whatever it was. And, someone who underachieved and kind of bitter and angry and, just whatever. And then, the siblings were all whatever they were, they were all, they had adversarial type of situations and trauma, and, there's just nothing there, right? There's no, there's nothing that a family can do for you that was in my family. Like the things that people can support each other and be there for each other. And, that was just not the case. There's these developmental milestones that people go through. And so you have life as a baby, which you have almost no, at least conscious memory of. And as a toddler and, maybe some few slight memories. Like my first memory was when I was like 4. I talked about that in my other video. My dad dropped me in the pond. And then, you have you become a kid, 7, 8, there's a whole thing that happens with your brain. The reason you don't have memories from when you're a child, when you're a baby and you're a toddler, is your brain prunes all these synapses, and there's all this, brain material that's lost, like a 30 or something like that. A high percentage of your brain is reprogrammed and rewired as you turn into a kid, and then you start getting your, testosterone, and you start to mature as a, as a teenager, and that's a phase. Then you break from your family, you go to college, or you move out on your own or whatever, you get a job, and so like there's that young adult phase, like that ends sort of the teenage stuff. And then there's, you get married and have kids, and your career phase, right, whatever that is. And then, your kids grow up, and as your kids get older, there's a whole different phase, like you go through these various, phases with your kids being toddlers and your kids being, older or whatever. And so, like I look at this life that I've lived here, there's been probably 5 or 6 past lives. Like I don't remember the kid baby stuff. So that's all like one thing, so the first past life was when I became a teenager, and you start realizing your parents are full of shit. Like I was like 12, 13. And, I had these experiences when I was a kid that I couldn't count on them and these things. But there was a time where I saw my parents as like deeply flawed fucking people. Like I'm aware of that. So I had friends and things in high school, but then when I moved out from my parents, I went to school that one year, and I came back to Connecticut, and I was living on my own in an apartment. That was like in a phase. I played basketball as, playing, in a couple of rec leagues and intramural basketball. I was playing sports a lot and partying, and I was, just off on my own, and I barely spent any time with my family. They were just kind of almost like an afterthought. And there was that period of time to where I started my spiritual practice when I was 29. And I went through, like that, and that life ended. Like all the people I knew in that second phase, I have no contact with pretty much everyone. One guy contacts me occasionally, one of my basketball buddies. But for the most part, I have no contact with any of those people, and my family included. And then, I started the spiritual practice, and that whole thing happened, and, went back to school and started my career as a counselor, and eventually did this, and my, the divorce and all that stuff. And then this was a new phase, right? With a YouTube channel and, the post-divorce and then remarrying, and then this is a whole new phase, right? So this is like a whole new life. Like that's, that other stuff I can't remember what it's like how to live, how I was there from day to day, how I got through a day, and the shitty marriage that I was in and the rest of it, my kids, for the most part, I don't have any contact with them. So like that whole life is gone, and I have just, what I have now, like this, whatever phase. And then, there'll be a, when my health starts breaking down and where I'll be an old person, so, that'll be kind of like a life of its own. This life, this one will bleed into that one, and there'll be some, continuity. But like I look at my family, and I left them behind like 40 years ago, right? Like, and we were never really connected in the first part. There was just, like some people grow up and their family is their lifelong people that you have an association with. But, I don't believe in just like pretending something's there when it's not. Nobody should believe in that. Like when your family sucks and there's no connection, like they're not really a part of anything that I do, or, there's similarities. We have genetic similarities, and we grew up in the same family. But other than that, there's just nothing there, right? There's no connection. There's no desire to spend time with them. There's just, the memories aren't great. There was good things that happened. But, when you live in a family, there's the good things and there's the bad things. And one of them's going to dominate, right? Like if you have like you have your good memories and you have the things that you go through, and one of them's going to dominate. It's going to either be like, well, this is a positive association, like with any relationship. Like you have relationships you had with people, and you had friends, and sometimes you just fade out of your life, but the friendship was really great and the person benefited you. It was like something, you just don't spend time with them, but you have fond memories about those people. And sometimes it's with your family. You really have fond memories, and there's some connectivity there, and there's, they had a positive influence. Or it's the opposite of that. Like it's, it's either one or the other. Or sometimes it's just, there was just nothing there. Nothing, nothing. It was just sort of dead. Like there was no real association. But, whatever connection I have with them was limited. Like they're not part of my soul family. They're not part of my overall purpose. It was just something I passed through, or something I had to endure. And, this going to school, I dislike school, like that whole thing. Like it was a real difficult period of time for me, so like I just wasn't digging my life, right? And I didn't know I had choices because I didn't, right? Like at that time, there's a period of my time where I just want to end with this. I was like 10 years old, 8 years old, whatever. And we had this big house. It was a depreciating neighborhood there was a 3-story house. It had multiple roofs. And I used to go sit on various roofs. So I was always climbing up on the roofs. We had a detached garage, and I used to get up on the garage. I was telling my wife how I used to have to hang down from the garage. And it was painful when you landed. Like, I usually didn't twist my ankle, but it wasn't great. It was probably like an 8-foot drop, so with me hanging down from whatever, the gutter or whatever I was, hanging on to. And by the time I dropped, all the blood had rushed to my feet, so it hurt even worse, right? But, there's these roofs, and we had these 2 glassed-in porches. And the one upstairs had some games, and nobody went in there but me. And it had great roof access, and I used to go sit on this roof. And I was going to run away from home. Like, I'm just going to, and nothing happened. Like, I wasn't like, they didn't, it was just a normal, like, nothing stood out, but I'm just like, I just got to, and I'm sitting there, and I'm trying to think about, like, all right, so what's the plan, right? Like, what are you going to do? And I'm like, well, you're going to get hungry, and you're going to need to sleep. Where are you going to sleep? What are you going to do? Because you don't know how to cook. Like, I was like a little kid. I didn't know anything. And I'm thinking this through, and I'm like, I'm fucked. Like, I got to stay here. And, like, my parents had no idea. But I was legitimately just going to leave. But, like, and it wasn't because things were so bad or it was abuse or some, the kind of things that people live with. It's just because I knew it sucked there, and I knew my family sucked. But but I realized I was fucked. Like, you can't go anywhere. Like, you just have to, like, endure this thing. Like, there was some, element realized I was suffocating in this situation, but I couldn't do anything. And so, so there's that. All right, let me see if there's anything else I want to cover here. Okay, so my wife just sent me this, I believe. Somebody did. Probably my wife. Today on the show, some guy sent me an email claiming he knows who killed JFK. I thought this was crazy. Nobody would think this is crazy when you went all in on fucking Mitch Snow. I thought this was crazy until he gave me an unbelievable tip about Charlie's assassination, which fully checks out. Also, TP Gay hits back on a YouTube account with a misguided legal letter accidentally revealing more lies they've told the public. Join us live. Let's the floodgates open. A legal turning point. Candace, episode 292. All right. So I guess I'll have to wait till tomorrow and post. This video isn't going to go up anyway till when would it be? Wednesday. So tomorrow's Tuesday. I'll add this to the end of my already pretty long video, and then we'll see if there's anything else I want to add there. Probably not. I don't really want to get into too much of Candace, but she's really this is an all-out war with Turning Point Gay, and they're just like imploding over there, which I don't know. We'll see what happens. Hopefully I won't have to watch too much of Candace, but we'll see tomorrow. I don't have to deal with it today, at least, right? So there's that. Okay, so I just want to add this before we get into the Candace Owens thing. I already pulled it up. It's just a fucking nightmare. I'm getting drugged back into her bullshit here. So I had these comments. I'm a huge fan of Candace. She hasn't lost a single one. Okay, well, that's not true. But because the title of my video, Candace lost 40% of her audience because of Mitch and Erica, plus Todd Bridges living the dream. Her numbers haven't dropped on her video views. I'm not sure how he came up with the premise when the facts are literally in our face. Then another person chimed in. She took 2.5 weeks off and didn't go and do any videos, so her popularity naturally dropped during that time. The numbers are now back up since she started doing the new material. And then another person writes, or one of the other people, the second person wrote, "Thanks for commenting. So is this video like propaganda or something?" My video. "And does her popularity being lower mean she has less mentions on social media? How does that work? I know you're not a video maker. I don't just understand how he can," and I didn't get the rest of that. I think it was probably how he can just say this, me. And so fuck all you all, right? Because here, let's go to the video portion. So Candace Owens was close to 3 million views per video. This is a month ago. This is about Erica Kirk and her going at it. Erica Kirk tells me to stop. And then this outlier, 4.6 million views. So 2.9, 2.9, 2.9. This is what happens when people don't watch the video, because I didn't discover this to the end of that video, and they're all commenting without watching the video. So they're commenting in complete ignorance, which is, always an auto ban, right? I don't care if you watch the video or not, but just don't comment on the title, because, titles are titles, right? And you have to find the part of the video in which I talk about it. And then, again, there's no reason to, everything that I say is going to be legitimate. In terms of I'm not just going to make shit up to fucking get views, Then this is 2.4 million, 2.6 million, 3.3 million. And this is Ben Shapiro. So this is right before she went on break. So she was averaging during this time period, again, throw out the 4.6 million, but 3 million, 3 million, 2.5 million, 2.6 million, and 3 million. So she was averaging probably about 2.8 million views at that time. She comes back after the disastrous week and the beating she took on the internet because of Mitch Snow. And she came back to 2.2 million. And people were waiting for this video, hoping that she had an explanation. And she didn't. So it dropped by 400,000 for the next two videos. And again, she's down 1 million views. She's down a third of her, 2.8 million she was averaging up until that point. Like, so she's obviously taking a beating because of the Mitch Snow thing. And it goes 1.8 million, then it goes back up to 2.3 million because of Charlie Kirk being in the title, probably more likely. And then back to 1.7 million, then all the way down to 1.4 million. And so this is what I was commenting about. At this point, compared to 2 million views, which I said 1.4 million was 40% of her audience. 1.4 million, 1.7 million, and now the new video that's just up today is 275,000. And so, like this Fort Chihuahua, Huachuca is not working, right? Like she's gone down to 1.4 million views, and you have to go down a long way to get that kind of level. There's 1.6 million here, 1.7, but see, she's averaging 2 million. And so, and then as she went into the Erica Kirk thing, with her and Erica Kirk, her viewership was way up, and now it's down to, below what's average for her, and I don't know how many of these viewers are now leaving shitty comments, right? Like she's in TPUS gay land where people are starting to turn on her. I'm sure you could go through the comments and find more and more negative comments. And so this is what I was talking about. I just don't make shit up. Like, it's fucking silly. Watch the fucking video where I talk about it. Because I show you the numbers, right? Because 1.4 million views is a lot less than when she was up here at 2.4, 2.6, 3.3 million, 4.6, and 2.9, and 2.9, right? So when she was having it out with Erica, she was averaging, 3 million views. She was averaging, put the 4 million views in there. She was averaging 3.5 million views. And then after the fucking Mitch Snow shit hit, she's down to 1.4 million views up here, 1.4 million views here, 1.7 here, right? So she's lost some of her audience, significant amount of her audience. And, it's not going to come back unless there's some kind of Erica Kirk thing. But Mitch Snow isn't getting the job done because everyone kind of can sense that she's reaching, right? Okay, so I'm not going to spend much time on this for the obvious reasons. She's horrible to listen to.
You guys, it is MLK Day, which means that no one, absolutely no one, can tell me that I cannot talk about my dreams today. Today might actually just be one long I had a dream speech. Well, guess what? We found out something stunning about Dan Flood.
No way. Fucking Dan Flood. Who's that?
That apparently everybody missed. And this is actually potentially a game changer, or rather...
It's a potential game changer. Not a game changer. It's potentially a game changer. That's not going to change the game at all because there's no fucking game, because the game has already been lost, or there is no solution to the game. But it's potentially one because Dan fucking Flood, that fucking guy, man, that guy can be a game changer.
It might reveal how the entire game works.
It might reveal. It might fucking reveal. Well, it won't because you're a lying piece of shit, right? It was leading your audience astray.
Makes perfect sense now to me that the feds are doing nothing to investigate Charlie Kirk's assassination.
Wait a minute, they're not? Holy shit. You mean you just realized that now that they've had a patsy in jail for like fucking 4 months? They arrested him minutes after the fucking shooting, and that they've said that there's a single shooter, and that they've settled on this guy, and they're waiting for another year to put him to trial. Another year, he'll be actually, tried, and that they're going to do nothing within that year, and probably America as we now know it won't even fucking exist. So is that your final conclusion? Are you willing to go out on a limb and say the feds are not investigating this, when in fact they've turned the case over to Utah, so the feds have nothing to do with this at this point because they're going with state jurisdiction here? For this particular thing they are. For other things they're not. Like in Minneapolis, where it's federal jurisdiction, and they're not allowing Minnesota to do anything, right? Like, so those things. And so you're willing to go out on a limb and say the feds are not doing anything?
Speaking of which, Turning Point USA has done a thing. They've done a thing. They sent a cease and desist letter to a relatively small YouTuber Wolves and Finance. We've shown a clip of Wolves and Finance on the show once. I assume that this means that Andrew Colvett is still heading up the PR department because it's a disaster.
It's a fucking disaster. It's a fucking disaster. What about the JFK thing?
Welcome back to Candace.
Boom! Welcome back. I've been gone for the weekend, and I come up with a whole new line of bullshit for you guys. All right, so let's briefly see what she says about JFK here, because this is
One guy who was emailing me consistently saying that, first and foremost, he knew that Charlie was going to be assassinated, all sorts of things that immediately made...
And he did nothing to do to prevent it. He didn't try to do anything to prevent it, right? It's another crazy fuck. Like, she gets... they have these tip lines that the police drive the police fucking nuts, right? They have all these people sending them tips. And usually it's people like serial confessors, people who want to confess to every crime under the book, under the sky. And, or whatever it is, right? Usually crazy fucks. And people who, don't have any real information, right? Like, there's lots of people who want to be helpful. I get it in the comment section. People think they know what's going on. Why don't you look into this thing? And then people think they know. You get a lot of crazy fucks that are out there. Or, just whatever they are. Trolls, whatever it might be. People who want to just, want attention, whatever the case may be. And so she gets these tips and she takes them seriously. Because she doesn't have to take responsibility for whatever the person says. We already know what happens. All of her bullshit viewers have bought into this idea here. It's a little bit of a twist what Alex Jones used to do, where she says, I don't know, I'm just going with whatever this person says. I'm just following the information. I prayed to God and Mitch Snow showed up, so that's good enough for me. I mean, I don't have to verify him because it's obviously he's the answer to God's prayers, right? Like only if you're praying for some effeminate doofus that I mean, Mitch Snow is never the answer to somebody's prayers. And so she just then puts it off, and they're like, well, she's running an open investigation here with all her little Candace detectives. And, it's kind of amazing that they all buy into it. And they're not, because we see her viewership is down. Because she's going nowhere. She has nothing, right? Even with TPS USK falling apart.
Made my eyebrow raise, obviously. For example, he said that he knew who killed JFK. A group of people, he said, killed JFK.
Did he?
All right, buddy. That's what I was thinking, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Because I got a bullshit detector. And I just said, just like with Mitch Snow, I said, yeah, this story sounds too fucking incredible for me. I don't believe it at all. Right? But here it is that she's talking about this guy and validating what he's saying.
He said that the families of those who had orchestrated the murder of JFK, corrupt cops, mafia members, I believe obviously that, they were a part of the ensemble. But he said that those same families were also involved in the assassination of Charlie Kirk.
No fucking way. That's fucking crazy. Oh my God. Like it just makes total sense though. It's crazy and yet it's logical that those families who were around, I don't know, was it 1969 was it when he was killed? When was he killed? 1963? 1963. Year before he was born. So 62 years ago. Those same families that were in power for 62 years have now decided to kill Charlie Kirk too, right? Crazy. Are any of these families Egyptian planes, or are they related to Brigitte Macron, or are they French Foreign Legion, or are they Mossad, or are they somehow FBI? Or what are they? Military? Were they all born at Fort Huachuca? Did they all go to Fort Huachuca for this big event, this big party they have 2 days before he was killed, with Mitch Snow stumbled into? Like, how does this all fit in with Fort Huachuca and the Egyptian planes? I mean, how does it fit in, Candace?
A group of Texas boys. I'm like, right, sure, got it, not answering this.
Got it, bro. Why are you even reading it? Like, why would you even read that, right? Like, I have, like, long fucking comments that I read 2 sentences, and I'm like, yeah, this is not for me. I've had millions of comments over the years, and if you're going to leave me a fucking page of information that, like, you're babbling about shit, I'm not reading it, right? I'm not reading long comments, and why would you?
He even said that Golda Meir, the one-time prime minister of Israel, well, her and Lyndon Baines, he said, are brother and sister, and he knows this for a fact. Now,
Boom! Whoa, what's happening here?
I'd say that's the most convincing.
Wait, what's up with that? What's up, fucking Candace? What's going on there, bro? Bro. Watch this right here.
Now,
What the fuck has happened there, bro? What is up? Is that like you got a reptilian face? Is your reptilian face peeling, bro? Bro, come on, bro. Look at that. What's happening there? That is some fucked up shit going on. Did you get?
I'd say that's the most convincing thing he said, because they are absolute twins. But anyway, obviously, I was not biting on any of this, because even
There's some kind of weird shit going on with her face there.
if it were true, what am I going to do with all this information?
I don't know. Just roll it out like it's legitimate, like you did with Mitch Snow in Fort Huachuca, like you always do, and you just throw it out there like throwing shit up against a wall with no substance, and claim that this is going to somehow lead you to Charlie Kirk's assassination. But no, this time you're going to show some self-restraint, right?
I can't get into a time machine and call for new elections in 1963. I already hate Lyndon Baines Johnson for free. I already think he's involved in JFK's assassination. And Golda Meir, look, I'm not exactly known as the voice of the Israeli people. So then he starts emailing me in another inbox, and he says something to the effect of, I see that you have tunnel vision and all you care about is Charlie Kirk's assassination. So why don't I tell you about how that worked, so that maybe you will begin to see the bigger picture here?
So how many emails of this guy? This is even a real person? Did you just make this shit up and you're pretending you get some? This is a tip. Like, I think that's what she does. Well, of course, Mitch Snow just an actor you hired to? Well, I guess it wouldn't be, because there's video of him out there. But why are you reading a second email from this guy, right?
And he says, and I'm going to put in a very strong allegedly here, because I don't have any proof of this, but it's relevant that I tell you this to get to...
Why is it relevant? If you have zero proof of it, why are you telling your fucking dumb fucks who are going to jump and follow this thing? As soon as you tell it, they're going to be all over it, because that's what your dumb fucks do. And your dumb fucks are thinning out. You're thinning out the herd after the Mitch Snow thing. But holy shit, why, again, no proof. This guy...
The part where I do have proof of what he's saying. He says that allegedly all of the bought and paid for cops throughout America are a part of what's known as the cattleman's ball, colloquially, the cattle baron ball, which he claims is just one big, massive money laundering operation from Israel to buy off cops here in America. He claims...
Do they fly it on Egyptian planes?
That he was a part of it, by the way. So basically, this guy's implicating himself in a crime.
No way. Is he?
Now, in case you're wondering off the bat, did I report this crime? I obviously...
Again, so what's going on there and there? Holy shit. It's like not a real face. It's like she's got a fucking fake face over here. Remember, she's a dude, right? Like, she covered that.
Have not even heard back from the feds regarding my initial report into what happened to Charlie Kirk. So why would I waste my time building upon the reports when I haven't heard from them? Okay,
yeah, you're never going to hear from the feds. You think the feds, they're not going to ever talk to you. You're never going to give a report back. The feds, did you mail it to the feds? Is that the address to include where you said, hey, I'm mailing this to the feds? Like, you discredit the feds constantly. You're talking shit about the feds. And I don't know, they're not responding to my unsubstantiated theories. My theories with no proof whatsoever. But this guy's bringing it with his cattleman's ball.
Any sense? Not really. They're not really investigating things. I think we all accept that at this point. Anyway, for a little bit of background here, in case you're not familiar with sometimes known as the cattleman's ball, but more correctly should be known as the cattle's baron ball down in Dallas, Texas. It's a single night fundraiser for the American Cancer Society.
Okay. Jesus fucking Christ. Well, obviously it's fake, and this is some nationwide conspiracy out of Dallas and Israel and Fort Huachuca. Is there a Fort Huachuca in here? Let me search to see Let me search to see if there's bring this around to Fort Huachuca. Because this is everything I've been saying, right? She has zero proof of this. Some random fuck shoves up, some rando, very much like a Mitch Snow. And she's saying this to her, her dumb fuck audience, right? And this is like, it's this is Candace. Okay, so as expected, she connects this somehow to Fort Huachuca. Or brings Fort Huachuca in. I don't know what. It's coming up here.
Assert that I cannot confirm those claims. That's
of course you can't. Why would you even report it then if you can't confirm it? You can give your own opinion about something. Say, like I've talked about things I have no way of proving. Things that have to do with, the Whispers of the Brighter World messages that I talk about, all these kind of things. Take it or leave it. Like, this is information, it may be true, it may be not. I can't prove it to you, factually. It's fine. Like, if you want to talk about things in a way that's speculative. But you pretend like there's some kind of information chain here, and it's not. You just throw out theory after theory, and then move on to something else, where you're leaving your audience, you're educating them, you're miseducating them. And again, they're dumb fucks, and they get what they deserve at this point, right? But it's not she's absolutely horrible.
how cops are being paid off. I'm telling you that because the next piece he gave me, I was able to research. Again, paraphrasing, but he kept going on with, you're obsessed with Fort Huachuca. You think Charlie has been tracked for a while, right? Well, you haven't even figured out who Dan Flood is. Dan Flood is connected to both. You think it was an inside job from the feds, and none of you guys have even worked out who Dan Flood's father is. I said, okay, now you've got my attention, and you guys, I don't know how I missed it. I don't know,
but here it is. It's a key piece.
I missed it. Let me just say, LOL to the...
Dan Flood's father is one of the DuPonts, or Bridget McCrome. Bridget McCrome is Dan Flood's father. I'm going with Bridget McCrome. Or Fort Huachuca somehow inseminated a woman. The fort itself.
idea that the feds are going to do anything.
Of course they're not. They're the feds that you keep on talking about. They're already set on their fucking guy. They already got their patsy.
To look into what happened on September 10th.
Why are you even talking about the feds? Like this is, the feds are going to somehow, follow your lead.
Because let me introduce to you guys Dan Flood's daddy, Mr. Robert Eugene Flood.
No way. There he is.
Okay, now, you're seeing his picture up here. Yep, 33. Always got to see it. 33 years with the Texas A&M.
And you know what? I bet he spent time at Fort Huachuca.
University, police department, chief deputy.
Okay, Jesus Christ. Where's the Fort Huachuca thing?
Just go to, show all 10 experiences and scroll from the bottom so we can look at this live. Okay, so we know he's a Marine. We learned that he was a staff sergeant for the Marines, and he was particularly in charge of surveillance and target acquisition, small arms and weapons, tactical radio communications, aviation.
Okay, where's the Fort Huachuca part?
Let me know if you guys know what that is. Then we learned he became a lieutenant colonel.
Okay, I'm going to have to search it again because he just fucking goes on forever here. So I guess Dan Flood is really Will Ferrell's half-brother. Okay, so I guess she's trying to get off Fort Huachuca when the guy said she was obsessed with it. Because now she's going to Texas, right? She's getting out of Arizona. She's going to Texas.
Under Greg Schaefer was Dan Flood and Brian Harpole. And there's no mystery regarding Greg Schaefer, okay? He also is from Dallas, Texas, working...
No way. They're all from Dallas, Texas. There's no fucking Fort Huachuca. It's Dallas, Texas. Everybody from Dallas, Texas is complicit in the Charlie Kirk assassination. You know who else was at Dallas, Texas? Erica J. Kirk, or Cindy J. Flood, as she's known, her alias.
FBI on the elite hostage and rescue team. He was a supervisor on the Dallas Joint Terrorism Task Force.
No way. It's out of Dallas, right? These guys, these corrupt cops from Dallas, now it's them. Like, it's a whole fucking new thing she's throwing out. I guess we're done with Fort Huachuca, or at least for now. And then she doesn't tie them together here, but way down the road. And I guess she's got the final piece. She's getting somewhere. She's finally fucking digging out of the hole of Fort Huachuca. And she's got another anonymous source. Of course, Mitch Snow ended up not being anonymous. But this is where she's going. All right, so that's enough of that. Like, it just keeps on going here, I'm sure.
This also another Eastern European connection because he was also a part of their organization in Budapest. In Budapest, Hungary.
Budapest, exactly. Hungary.
If you didn't know, the FBI also has sub-offices all around.
Exactly. So, I mean, they have to be involved with Charlie Kirk. Another country, another state. Is there a fort in there? Do they have planes? Are there surveillance planes? What else you got there? And so this is what she does. Like, it's just a never-ending fucking... She is the rabbit hole. Okay, let's get to the other piece here.
Okay, so new conspiracy just dropped. I'm dropping a new conspiracy today for funsies. You know, in the movie Mean Girls, when Lindsay Lohan sabotages Regina George, she sabotages her diet at least by giving her these nutrient-dense bars from Africa, but telling Regina that the bars are actually going to help her lose weight. And then she realizes that she's been sabotaged and she screams. That's what I have to imagine is happening at Turning Point USA. Like somebody.
Exactly. It's just like the Mean Girls. Which Mean Girl are you? Which Mean Girl are you? So this is what it's all about, right? Her and Erica hating each other. Like, this was never about Charlie Kirk assassination. Charlie Kirk totally dissed her, kicked her to the curb when when she went off on Israel. He dropped her from TPUSK. They were still friends in air quotes. But then he came back around because he was losing his audience. But this is about Erica. It's always been about Erica. Like, she talked about how great Erica was. I showed you that clip last time in my last video about this. And then she was like all about Erica's great speech and this and that. But, she was just biding her time when she knew this was going to come around to Erica, right?
Somebody's just setting Erica Kirk up, right? It's probably Elizabeth McCoy. I feel like it's her because they're like best friends, and Elizabeth and Mikey are like in the shadows, like it's going to be us. We're going to be next. Turning Point is ours. And so she's pretending to be Erica's BFF, but secretly giving her the worst advice of all time. She's like, you should wear glitter tonight. I don't think there's enough glitter.
Boom.
You need glitter on the makeup, head to toe, all of it.
Okay, but you know what? Like, Erica Kirk, if she can't choose her own fucking outfit, if you're thinking she's just being handled that badly and that she's incapable of thinking, then what are you even competing with her for? If she didn't pick this out on her own and she didn't realize how fucking stupid it was and she needs people to hand her and tell her not to wear glitter on a fucking event just a few months after her husband got killed. She did all this fake grieving. I mean, she's disappeared. Like, Erica Kirk doesn't know shit, right? She doesn't understand the truth community. Doesn't understand her audience. She doesn't understand Charlie's audience, not her audience. And they're tanking, right?
You look amazing. Charlie loved pyrotechnics, and he also liked that Nicki Minaj Monsterverse. I think you need both. We got to do both. We need to put the fun in funeral.
Okay, so let's get to the suing part. If you're going to get around, do I have to fucking stop this and search? I don't want to search.
I don't know. That's what I think.
Okay, so let's see the sue thing.
Has he gotten everything right? Of course not. We
decided to start with me.
Oh, here we go.
Acting a bad faith actor by any means. It's wolves in finance, and I'm referring to the presenter, Zach Gregorio. I'm going to let him explain to you what happened. Take a listen.
This week, I received a letter from Turning Point titled Demand to Cease and Desist Defamatory Comments. This is the first step when someone sues you for defamation. I know there are a lot of people out there making videos about Turning Point, so you should pay attention to this. They have started sending out cease and desist letters, and for some reason, they've decided to start with me. Apparently, they cannot handle the criticism from my teeny tiny YouTube channel. This letter is showing the world the type of organization Turning Point has become under Erica Kirk. They want to send legal letters to small YouTube creators. So we're going to go through this letter. Now, it is nice that we have this letter with their official statements, but the letter does nothing to change my suspicions. It does not address most of my questions. Instead of answering my questions, it is the precursor to a lawsuit unless I change my statements. That does nothing to reduce my suspicions. For the sake of avoiding miscommunication, I can change the title of the video if that makes them more happy. I already changed it from more fraud at Turning Point USA to more fraud at Turning Point USA, allegedly.
Okay, so, yeah, this is going south quickly. All right, so I think I'm going to cover, there's, Megyn Kelly's really mad at Don Lemon, so that should be wonderful. I'm not sure what that's about. I think this video is going to be long. I'll edit this tomorrow. I got a dental appointment, so I have a short day tomorrow, and I also have to do the sitting before I go, so there's, so I can finish this video up tomorrow, edit it, and I think that'll be enough for this video, but we'll see. I'll make that decision tomorrow. Anyways, this is Candace Owens is the rabbit hole, I said in the title of my video, and it just keeps on being proven more and more correct. Okay, so I've decided to do a voiceover tonight, and then finish the voiceover, do a second one tomorrow. And, I had this one comment I wanted to talk about. There's another comment, I don't have the exact comment, but it's, somewhere. So a person wrote this. Oh, no, that's not it. Maybe here. And that's not it either. I think it must be here. And that's not it as well. Maybe I should just stop and find it. Here's the comment. I want to tie this back to my family stuff too. But the person wrote, I must confess for the longest time I didn't fully appreciate just how dumb a lot of people are, which is a poetic self-own. A shit-a-thon of people simply lack imagination. Things just don't occur to them. And they can't work out anything original. It's amazing to see. We have blind spots, but some folks are just blind. There was a good one, especially in 30 minutes and 26 seconds in. Thanks again, Paul. What I want to say about me saying this, when you call people stupid, it comes off like you think you're smart. And that's not what I think about myself. When I call people dummies, sometimes, I'm also thinking about how I was dumb when I was younger and the dumb shit I did, right? When I call people dumb fucks or stupid or whatever. But it doesn't come from a place of superiority, at least mostly, right? I mean, I guess there has to be some of that. But what I've been trying to say is, there's people who I know, lots of people who are smarter than me, at least academically and in various capacities. And there's people that show that they're smarter than me in certain situations. Maybe like a mechanic who knows more about cars or, any number of things where people are experts in something. And so again, smart or not is not what I'm talking about. It's a consciousness level. And a lot of my consciousness level comes from the Sajmark system because I was an incompetent, underachieving piece of shit before I started Sajmark. So there's no sense in me. There's built-in humility just slapping at me in the face because I'm aware of that. What I was before I was blessed with the Sajmark meditation. But what I've kind of figured out, because the Sajmark meditation is such a rare opportunity that a lot of or most of the higher developed souls were associated with it. And there are some wonderful saintly people, and certainly the masters of the system. They were on a completely different level. And, then this stuff happened with the fourth master of the system crapping out. But there are higher developed souls that have come onto planet Earth that have, incarnated here. And, some of them we know about, some of them we don't. Some of them you may, get lucky enough to meet. And, that's wonderful, right? That's, but that's a handful of people. Like, I don't know, 200, 1,000. I mean, even 10,000. It's nothing compared to 8 billion people, right? And so when I've said this in various videos, I wish I was the stupidest person. I wish I was the least spiritual person around. Because that would give me hope. I mean, there would be nothing but hope. There'd be nothing but people who are better than me, right? That would mean humanity was in great shape. But when, I'm in the upper echelon of anything, then humanity's in fucking trouble, right? If I'm one of the best truthers, then the truth community sucks. Right? Like if I'm, people say all the time, they think, I'm one of the, I'm the best truther, the best channel. Well, if that's the case, then we're fucked, right? I mean, just in terms of the truth community and, what that represents. Because all of us in the truth community are better than mainstream media. I mean, not all of us, because there's, real truthers, right? There's a lot of, I'm not talking about disinformation shills or just dumb fucks, but I'm talking about real truthers who understand, who are better than the mainstream media. And all of us who are better than the mainstream media, or let's put it this way, is Joe Rogan better than mainstream media? Yes. Is Candace Owens better than mainstream media? Yes. That's a little bit questionable because she's such a deceiver. I would say probably no, but she's easier to watch, and we agree with more of what she says. Even someone like Megyn Kelly, who's, just this despicable person. But in terms of being better than mainstream, well, anybody who's validating Trump, it's a little bit questionable. But, they're easier to watch and they're more authentic, right? All these people like Jen Psaki, which I showed you in the beginning of this video, they're all trying to be authentic, right? And so all of us who are doing what we're doing, just from a standpoint of authenticity, and we don't have all these corporate, media entities and corrupt, governmental officials and all the rest of it telling us what to say and what we can't say, that's better in itself, right? And so if we're better than the mainstream media, and I'm in the upper echelon in terms of, being able to tell the truth, certainly the spiritual stuff, which none of these people cover. If the solution is only spirituality will save this world, only when people connect to divinity within them, and I'm one of the few people talking about this, then we're totally fucked, right? And that's what I've been trying to get at. Like, I am seeing more and more like I'm in the upper echelon in terms of my intelligence level, and have been. I experienced this with my family or whatever it is, right? This is what I was kind of making reference to, that I had some abilities and I had some experiences from a past life. And if I'm the cream of the crop, then the crop sucks, right? That's why and I'm not being deprecating. This isn't me saying anything like that. Like, I know my limitations. And when the Sajmark system, the Heartfulness debacle, and all these great souls, all these great saints fail to be able to deal with it in any effective way, with this guy Dodgy corrupting the system, like so many religions, so many spiritual organizations before, spiritual movements got corrupted and turned into, money-making shitty religions. This is what happens to humanity. There are another couple of comments here where a person writes this. The person says, "Thank you for a reminder about the meditations, and nothing seems to be working, but actually work being done. Just went through that, then had 2 meditations very strong." What I had said in the video was that sometimes these restless meditations, Master Charji said all his best sittings, the meditations we do, the sittings he received from Babaji, the ones that he was most restless and uncomfortable turned out to be the best ones. And so that's part of the Sajmark system. But then the guy says this, "I've told many people about the meditation system. No one will try it. They listen to me, but they won't try." And so, this is what I've experienced for years. I believe wholeheartedly, and it, should make logical sense, that if people could connect to divinity within them, what if everybody was on Jesus' level? What if everybody was on the same spiritual level as Jesus? Or even higher than that, because there's higher levels than that. But just Jesus, or just, any number of saints, like real legitimate saints that weren't maybe as high a level as Jesus, or whatever. If everybody was just on that level, what do you think the world would be like? If you had a society full of saints, and this is what I keep on talking about. But people don't want to do that, right? They don't want to even try it. And so, whether it's this meditation or something else, they're not pursuing sainthood. Like, there's been saints in the past. People want to be the richest guy. How many people want to be Elon Musk or Bill Gates or, Quentin Tarantino? I was talking about that in the last video. There's a bunch of comments about that because the guy someone said quintessential. Anyways, how many people have been like that, right? How many people have been on a higher level in terms of, like, whatever it is, and people want to be like them? How many people want to be Michael Jordan? How many people want to be, Aaron Rodgers or the greatest quarterback or whatever it is, right? Tom Brady. Like, how many people want to be any number of people? how many people want to be Donald Trump. But then compare that to the number of people who want to be a saint. They want to be spiritual, because that means that you have to like be a good person and work for God and give up your your bullshit, right? Your ego doesn't want to do that. People's egos don't want to be a saint because your ego has to give up control. And so, that's where we're at as a species. This is making reference to what I was talking about with my family. That, I mean, it's sad when you realize that you're the cream of the crop. And you realize that when you see your own limitations, that, you would think that people are there's got to be people that are so much better than you. Like people who are dumb, they're like, well, at least there's all these smart people around here. Like all these dumb fucks I talk about, and they come and they listen to one person after another tell them how the system can be saved, and they buy into the bullshit. I mean, all the people, oh, look at this guy, look at this genius Donald Trump. Boy, is that motherfucker smart. And he says he can make America great again. And I'm a dumb fuck, so I guess, if this smart guy says it, then it can be done. Right? And you're like, well, Donald Trump is a dumb fuck. And he's a grifter, and he's, lying to you. And so, but he's not really very smart, and he is just very good at lying to dumb fucks, right? And so, I mean, that's where we're at. And it's, this is where humanity is. Everyone thinks that there's some upper echelon of people who are somehow better than them. It's the flaw in the truth community. The stupid InfoWars model where you go about thinking that you can wake everybody up. If I wake everybody up, then all these smart people who aren't as aware and awake as I am, all these sleeping people, they'll do something, right? If we wake up all the sheeple, all the dumb fuck sheeple, they're going to do something, right? Well, if you don't have a solution, how the fuck you expect them to? Like, they don't even care, and they don't even understand, and they're sticking their heads in the sand. You think they're going to have the fucking solution that you don't? You're better than them, right, at this. You're ahead of them. They're looking up at you, right? And so, how the fuck do you think that's going to work out? There's a few more comments. I might as well get to these here, then I can start my video fresh. Let me pull these other comments up. So the comments are just coming in my video that I released tonight. And so some of these are about, you are Italian, swearing's in your jeans. That's 100% racist. I don't wear jeans. Give us your chili recipe, please. I do not have a chili recipe, so I don't feel like doing that right now because it's late. But I just have things in my head, and I'd have to, make sure I'll try to remember just to tell you what I do. It's pretty much all my recipes, whether I'm making tacos or whether I'm making nachos or I'm making spaghetti sauce. It's all kind of the same. It varies with the spices. But I don't have recipes. I just have everything kind of memorized. And so Kim Iverson, I kind of made fun of her. Kim Iverson was getting there, but you kept interrupting every 5 seconds. Also, your voice mocking the sound of her voice as unintelligent is rich, meaning that I'm the unintelligent one. Then a person said, she'll never get there. Anyone who didn't see through through either obviously fake assassination immediately is a lost cause. The cement has hardened around them. And, for this person said they're going to get there, she came out and said what was preventing her from considering this to be a fake assassination was the fact that she felt like, a sniper, Trump saying that he would allow a sniper to nick his ear. And if you saw the video, you know what I'm talking about. Like, she thought that he was actually shot in the ear, but then they faked it after that. I'm like, no, there was no shot, right? And so, but what the other person just said, of course, like if you can't come around to that thing, I mean, if you don't see it kind of immediately or shortly after, and it's now, so far past that, it's over a year and it's coming around, what is it, a year and a half? When did the thing happen? In August? So, yeah, so almost a year and a half later. And so, like Trump's was sworn in last year. And so, like, it's it's quite a bit of time, and you're finally considering Trump's assassination is fake, and just the stupidity behind it. And so this is everything I'm talking about, right? Like, it's just, I mean, it's more than depressing, because the state of humanity is not good. And I've never felt it was good, but there's always this idea that there's something here to save. And, I'd heard about these indigo children. I've known about that for a while, and I believed it, and I still kind of believe it, but, they're not displaying themselves as spiritual. Maybe it's something that's inside of them that's waiting to flower under the apocalyptic type situation. I'm talking about a group of highly developed souls that have been born here. I mean, it's been for a while. Like, it's, generations of higher developed souls incarnating here for the next big movement. And it's something I've been banking on and counting on, and I hope to God it's true. And I believe it can be true, but doesn't appear to be true at all, right? At least in terms of the way people are acting. And so that's, kind of my whole thing with everything. All right, so let me wrap this thing up here. Okay, so I had a few more thoughts to just sort of close up what I was talking about here, and a few more thoughts about my family. And so this, I think her name was Kim Iverson, bunch of comments about that, and, mostly, people agreeing, but a few people talking about her or whatever, their fans or whatever. And what I was saying about Jimmy Dore and what I was saying about Candace Owens and these other people, you have the right to have a platform. Like, that's, you have the legal right, and this is, these are open, whatever it is. I mean, they're privately owned, but they're, they want people, it's YouTube, right? It's, this whole thing. And so anybody can make video content, right? And, everyone can voice their opinion, which, in theory is a good thing. People learning critical thinking skills. My third attempt at college was a hippie college, where it really stresses you developing your own voice, which, helped me. A lot of it was talking about the way you see things. It came from a kind of, they were interested in a liberal perspective. When I found Saj Marg, I got all A's until I found Saj Marg, and I was talking about God at the end. Like, they didn't like that, but it's they liked critical thinking until it didn't agree with their whole mindset and genre. And so there's a lot of oppression out there in the world. A lot of where people force you to say whatever they you're supposed to parrot what they're saying. I mean, Trump is a big proponent of that, like you can tell with him. Like, he isn't aware of what's going on in social media. Otherwise, he'd be censoring it, right, in terms of the stuff about him. Like, he's only concerned about, people that appear on Fox News or whatever, these kind of things. Then you get onto his radar. But, it's also important to be right. And these people who are, these popular truthers now, and they're not really truthers, people who are, I showed you with this thing with Jen Psaki. Even these, lame-ass mainstream media people like Don Lemons, who I'm going to cover in my next video. He's stepped in it with, he went into some church or something. And so I'm going to be working on that today. But all these people, he talks about the legacy media. You have to be on the right side of things. You have to be right. And you can't, wreck it by discrediting it, right? I mean, you can, but you shouldn't, right? You should just not do that. Like, it's something where you're just coming in. All these people, the Tucker Carlsons and all these other people that have come into this space of, the alternative media, and they're just shills and working for the CIA and, Candace Owens, disinformation agents, and they're all wanting to be part of the club, and they all suck at it, right? Like, there's, there should be some discrimination in the viewing audience, and it's just not there. People are just stupid. So, it's an indication that humans just don't know. Like, they can't differentiate. We used to have this, we had to differential diagnosis, where you'd have, someone who's either had a borderline personality disorder or a narcissistic personality disorder, and there's things that there are shared symptoms, right? And they have that with diseases. Like, again, I'm not in allopathic medicine, and I don't really love the psychological model, but there's some truth in both of them, at least in terms of diagnosing physical conditions. And you have to differentiate, and people just can't do that. And so that's a big part of the problem. The truth community is compromised because people can't think for themselves. They're trying really hard, but they just don't have the capacity. And it's kind of what I've been alluding to, lately. It's just, my God, this is what we've got to work with. So someone left a comment about Begonia and another show that I liked, Begonia and Pluribus. And the person said, they couldn't get into it because of the political agenda and the, whatever, I don't know if it's predictive programming, but, this stuff where they're doing all these things in movies and TV shows. And that's, people could have their different opinion, but that stuff is it's useless at this point, right? We're past that stage. I used to cover this quite a bit, some sort of satanic worship or Illuminati symbolism or any number of things that are in movies and TV shows, and then all the social stuff they're pushing. But at this point, we're in free fall. We're past the point of no return. They don't have to condition people or get to their subconscious, because again, people are stupid. People are going to go along with whatever's presented to them until they don't have access to their lifestyle anymore. We already know that. They don't have to win people over. I don't know what they're even doing with that kind of stuff. So I used to care about that stuff, and occasionally I point it out. I'm watching this Monarch monster thing on Apple. I used to like monster movies. My dad used to take me to Godzilla, and when I was a kid, and I used to like these types of movies. And I kind of I'm interested. I've seen these movies with Godzilla versus King Kong, and they're okay. And this TV show was okay. It's called Monarch, so I was interested in that. They've had this monster thing. And it's, they have to stretch these things out when they make them into TV series. And so I don't know how I'm feeling about it. But the third or fourth episode of the show, there's three main characters, two Japanese. I have three main young people in this show. Kurt Russell's in it, and there's six other people. And I think they make these things where they can, they're making them in Japanese and in English, for a dual audience. I assume these actors will read the lines in Japanese, and then because they speak both, and there's some subtitles and things, but mostly it's English. And they're talking about how in one of these, I think Godzilla versus King Kong or one of these other monster movies, they've created this Marvel-like universe. They do this with Marvel. And there's this event that happened where Godzilla destroys San Francisco, and so this girl who lives there she learns that she has a half brother in Japan, and they're driving through San Francisco. She's telling them about she was involved in the the Godzilla destroying it, and she was talking about how all the people are all the way the people are behaving badly, and she says, and then a lot of people are just pushing all these governmental conspiracies, and there's a African American girl that's dating the Japanese guy, and which is kind of typical how they love these kind of things now, right? And when the Japanese girl says, all these people come up with these anti-governmental conspiracies, the other girl goes, yeah, those sick freaks, right? Calling conspiracy theorists sick freaks, so, which is insulting to us all, but who gives a shit, right? And then they flash back to the time, and the Japanese girl is with her white lesbian girlfriend, right? And they waited 4 episodes to say she was a lesbian, right? So it's always this kind of stuff. But it doesn't matter, right? None of it matters because people are just fucking brain dead, so it doesn't fucking matter. But what's interesting about it is you can tell when movies are being made, because there's a certain period where the Me Too thing happened and women started to become the protagonists, where they started to cast women as the lead character, but often in roles that were meant for men, right? So that was a whole thing. And that kind of got, it went too far and people got pissed off with it. It still exists, but it's less. And oftentimes the women would give this monologue about how hard it is to be a woman. And they do this in this show. There's a Japanese woman who was married to a ginger white dude in the beginning of the like the 40s. It's an old, their grandparents of this monarch program. And she's a doctor, a scientist, and she's constantly being disrespected and underrated because she's a woman, and she lets everybody know about it. Like this kind of stuff. And so there's that, right? And then they started to put transgenders everywhere. Transgender characters were everywhere. They had to have one no matter what. They were slipping it into fucking cartoons and then all that shit. And the lesbians were like, what about us? And now there's all these lesbians. Like, I've just covered this recently. There's 4 or 5 shows that features lesbians. It's like a whole... So most of the times it's contrived. Sometimes it works. But none of this stuff really matters, right? Because we're past that stage of, like, them, trying to indoctrinate people or whatever it might be. You see how it's backfired. Like, I knew that this would backfire. That's why Trump got elected. Like, and the Democrats aren't even talking about it anymore. They're not talking about these social issues, so Hollywood's, like, left out on their own. Because they started making these movies and TV shows, like, 2 years ago. Right? And so, like, in 2 years, there'll be a lot of shit about these activists getting shot in the face by ICE, right? Like, it's just how it goes. They're always, because it takes so long to make a TV show and a movie that the social politics move on. And by the time they get around to it, I mean, some of it's, they do it for they're introducing some of these ideas. But now it's like they're behind. They're always behind by a couple of years. But anyways, what I wanted to say about my family stuff is, like, I was thinking about this last night. And, I kind of wanted to say this, but I really didn't have it, because I was just going down memory lane and all that stuff. I learned early in life that I couldn't count on my family. Like, I just couldn't depend on them to come through, and I experienced it. I guess it's a painful thing, but I don't feel anything, about it. But, my mom, the worst thing she did was an operation that gave me mono. But she, did things that physically hurt me. Like, that ended up, I used to take antihistamine and Activit at night, and it made me have trouble falling asleep. At a certain period of time, I started smoking pot to fall asleep. Not just that was part of it. But I got to high school. And, just a lot of different things that, some of the things I described here. And, in all that, there was, I was describing this story about when I was in high school, and I was, in this, was on a sailboat with my friends from high school. And the sailboat took off on us when we were swimming. And the boat magically appeared, right? Because otherwise we would have drowned. At least, I don't think I would have made it to shore. Like, I was exhausted. We swam really fast after the boat, as fast as we could for, 5 minutes. And then we were like, fuck. And I'm like, I was out of breath and physically tired. I looked at the shore and I'm like, oh my God, we're so fucking far away. We're like half a mile from the fucking shore. I'm like, I don't think I can make it, right? And this boat appeared out of nowhere. And so, I've always felt like God's there, not in the sense of like I'm going to live forever, but just God's always been there. It's like God has been something, whatever God was to me, watching over me, whether I was aware of it or not. And it's been proven to me over and over again. Like, I can always count on God, right? But I can always count on people to do the wrong thing. Like, I can't trust them. Like, at least family, and, because people are deeply flawed, and, sometimes people are good and they come through, but oftentimes they don't. And I've experienced it over and over again. And now, of course, with the Heartfulness organization collapsing, something that was just wonderful and was like a solution. And, and now it's, been, degraded like all these religions. And, people just are, that's what they are. And so, and to tie this to the other stuff that I was talking about, right, I was saying that, if I'm on the upper echelon, if I'm somebody who's, at least on the spiritual level, in the top, whatever, even 10%, then we're screwed, right? Because, but it's maybe even more than that. So like 1% or whatever. And I'm talking about consciousness here, not kindness or not, acts of generosity. I'm talking about like just where I am in terms of my spiritual journey and spiritual approach. And so, in the Sajmark system, they talk about a genetic mutation in human beings being like a whole different species, like evolving to a different level. And so there's going to be a battle, like in terms of, I don't want to say a battle, but like the difference between the Cro-Magnon and the Neanderthal, and I'm not saying that's true, but that idea, there was one evolving species that replaces the other, right? Like this has happened on the, the world here. The history of the earth. There's been, some evolution, and where human beings rise up to a higher level, and they just have more capacity, and then what's left behind is the current human being, and it has to happen. Like I am 100% convinced by that, because what we are right now isn't enough for our situation. Like we have to rise up to a higher level. There's no question about it. And this is, I've experienced this over and over again. We're not enough. We have hidden capacity. We have, potential we're not activating and realizing. And a lot of that comes from our connection to divinity within us. And it's a key that needs to be turned. And if it isn't, we're going to perish. Like it's, either evolve or perish kind of situation. Evolve or go extinct. So that's where we are as a species. And I'm, 100% sure of it. So, there's an opportunity here, and it's either going to be taken or not, and we'll see what happens. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely important for the apocalypse and the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day, and be grateful.